The time is 7:30. We're calling this meeting to order. All rise for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Thank you. Those council members who are on the phone, can you still hear us?
Breaking in and out.
We just completed the moment of silence. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Here.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Kelley?
Here.
Councilmember Jackson?
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson? Vice President Abrahamson? Vice President Abrahamson?
Vice President Abrahamson, I'm calling you from my speakerphone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot hear at all.
Okay. You're on speaker. The clerk is calling the roll.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Here.
President Jedynak?
Here. All council members are here. We have quorum. This meeting was advertised in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. Notice was published in the Township's official newspapers, the Daily Record and the Star-Ledger, on January 5th, 2019. Notice was posted on the official bulletin boards of Rockaway Township. Item number 6 is a designation of Sergeant at Arms. Township Code 2-5.15. Decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant of arms at the council meeting. The sergeant at arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. The accepted standard is that members of the audience are asked to keep their volume to an inaudible level so that business can be conducted and so that those who are speaking can be clearly heard. If an individual becomes audible, the sergeant at arms is expected to ask the individual to reduce their volume to an inaudible level or to ask the individual to leave the meeting room as necessary. I don't see the chief of police here this evening. I see 2 officers in the back. Could you please identify yourself?
Lieutenant Dodgeson.
Will you be serving as the sergeant at arms for this meeting?
Yes.
Did you hear the accepted standard?
Yes.
Before we get to item number 7, I have a brief statement. As of this meeting, I've decided to step aside as council president to allow another council member to share in leadership responsibilities and serve as council president this year. I have personal and family commitments that have taken up significantly more time over the past year, and I will continue to serve in my capacity as an at-large council member and look forward to playing a supporting role and continuing to represent the taxpayers of Rockaway Township. At this time, I'm going to be handing the meeting over to the Council Vice President. Council Vice President, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
The meeting is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeremy. I want to thank you, Jeremy, for the year you gave the township and your hard work and dedication. I'd like to, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to have Councilman Kelley act as our council president. Do I have a second on the floor?
I'll second.
Clerk, can you call the roll?
Excuse me 1 second.
Can I make a motion then?
If you're taking nominations, you have to open the floor to all nominations.
Yes.
Can you speak up? I cannot hear you.
We have to make another motion.
If you're taking nominations, you have to open the floor up to all nominations.
Okay.
Council Vice President, also remind you have discretion as to rules of order.
Well, here's the way I see it. I made a motion. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Palumbo seconded.
Okay, so I have a second. Let's go through this roll call, and we'll put another, if it doesn't pass, we'll get another motion on.
That's not how it works. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Who's talking? One at a time, please. Who would like to, Council Member Jeremy Jedynak? Who is speaking right now?
Councilman
You
Friedlander.
had Councilmember Sackett who spoke, and then simultaneously you had him, Councilmember Friedlander, and Councilmember Quinn simultaneously speak.
Okay, well, let's take the roll call for the first motion, and we'll have another motion.
You have a question as to whether there's discussion on the motion. Again, you have, as the acting council president, discretion as to rules of order.
Okay, I can have discussion. Does someone want to have discussion on the motion?
Yes. The rule is usually you
Go ahead,
can accept the
Mr.
second
Friedlander,
motion.
Mr. Friedlander, excuse me, one at a time, please.
I'm the only one
Mr.
talking.
Friedlander, did you want to have discussion?
Yes.
Why are you leaving in the first place? We don't hear why you left. Mr. Jeremy, please think why you...
Excuse me, I think we just heard Councilman Jedynak explain the reasons why he was stepping aside. I would like to have discussion. If Mr. Friedlander has made a motion to have discussion, we can call discussion at this time. Councilman Friedlander, what would you like to discuss?
I'd like to make a second motion for council president.
Okay? Go ahead. Who's your second motion?
I would make a motion for Jonathan Sackett as council president.
Okay. Does everybody have a second? Is there a second? Who?
Mr. Quinn.
Mr. Quinn seconded. Okay. So let's go with any other discussion?
Everyone is silent.
There's no other discussion. Okay, so the first motion on the floor was for Councilman Kelley, seconded by Councilmember Palumbo. The second motion on the floor is from Councilman Friedlander for Jonathan Sackett, seconded by Councilmember Quinn. Clerk, can you call the roll for the first motion on the floor, Councilman Kelley?
Councilmember Quinn.
No.
Councilmember Friedlander.
No.
Councilmember Palumbo.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Do the right thing.
Councilmember Sackett.
No.
Councilmember Kelley.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Can't vote.
Vice
I'm
President.
sorry, I didn't hear that.
Councilmember Jackson voted no.
Okay,
Vice President Abrahamson.
yes.
President Jedynak. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Councilmember Jedynak.
Yes.
So I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses. 1, 2, 3, 4 noes. The yeses win.
He can't vote for himself. Against the rules, Patty.
We have a majority.
No, he can't vote for himself.
Yes, you got it.
He can? Are you kidding me?
Who made up those flooding laws?
Council, excuse me. Clerk, can you please take a 10-minute recess to prepare the paperwork for Councilman Kelley to be sworn in?
10 minutes.
Vote on the motion for recess.
10-minute recess for Councilman Kelley to be sworn in, please.
It needs to be a vote on the recess motion.
5 minutes, you're not even here.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess at this time.
There needs to be a vote on the recess motion.
There needs to be a vote on
You're out of order, Jeremy.
Do you mind standing by?
I'm fine on the line.
You have to vote on the recess.
We don't have votes on that.
Folks on recess.
Here we go.
Perform all the duties of the office of Rockaway Township Council President to the best of my ability, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people. So help me God.
The meeting is in full time. Everybody ready?
Here, ready.
First of all, thank you everybody that did support me on this, and those that didn't. I hope that we can work together and move forward with this and get along and get some good work done in 2019.
No one can hear you. Start over, please.
And moving forward, I'll take off where our past council president had left off, which was the designation of Sergeant of Arms. We're on number 7, mayor's appointments. We have a mayor appointment for 7, it would be A. Clean Community Coordinator, 1 term, Kara Solano. We have B, Community Development Revenue Sharing Committee, 1-year term, 1 regular member, Peter Tabbitt. 2 would be alternate member, Allison Ferrante. And C would be Recycling Coordinator for 1-year term, would be Al Nam.
I just wanted to read my address before I do the appointments.
Okay,
Okay.
yes, Mayor Puzio, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to wish everyone, it's required by statute that we have a list of an annual report, a list of our accomplishments that the mayor has performed over the past year. I've only been mayor since November 20th, so I've only been in here for a few weeks. What I did is I sat down with Ms. Seeger and some of the other department heads and put together a list of things that were done by Mike Datchison and by some of the other mayors leading up to this point that encompasses the whole year. I would like to wish everyone a happy new year and welcome all of you to Rockaway Township's 2019 reorganization meeting. It is my privilege to serve as your mayor, and I am eager to highlight some of Mayor Michael Datchison's and our administration's accomplishments from 2018 and share with you my vision for the future. As required by code, the mayor shall annually report to the council and public on work of the previous year in 2018. These are some of the things that we accomplished. Purchased and refurbished a used curbside recycling truck sorely needed in the division, saving the taxpayers $215,000. provided curbside collection to the township residents, along with the collection and disposal of 13 containers at the 2 recycling centers, installed over 800 feet of drainage piping and catch basins, milled 2 intersections with the township's shared service road zipper, and paved the roads in-house. Rehabilitated the township basketball court at Peterson Field, which included soil grading, storm basin rebuilding, and paving. Rebuilt basins and prepped 9 streets for capital budget paving. Plowed and salted streets during 3 back-to-back nor'easters. Provided snow removal on 4,000 feet of sidewalks and stairs at township buildings. Completed the Omaha Avenue water main replacement project with the installation of 2,600 feet of new service lines and 7 new fire hydrants. Replaced 8 older style fire hydrants throughout our distribution system. Replaced 20-plus-year-old control panels at the North Lakeshore sewer pumping stations with a new control system. Flushed almost 10,000 feet of sewer lines for preventative maintenance. Completed repairs to 29 water leaks of various sizes. Designed and painted on a weekly basis 52 soccer fields, 3 football fields, 3 lacrosse fields, and 22 baseball fields for men's and women's league sports, as well as Boys and Girls Little League. Provided services to recreation summer programs. Designed and accepted the delivery of the new KME fire apparatus. Accepted several new members to the volunteer fire EMS service. Completed the purchase of a new fire/rescue boat. Completed 129 life hazard registration inspections. The police department introduced the new ALICE system for responding to active shooter incidents into all of the township's public schools. Instruction was given to all of the school employees so that they would be prepared should the unthinkable happen in our schools. Refresher follow-ups will continue into 2019. Police Department started a new Honor Guard unit. The team of officers represented the PD in appropriate ceremonies and public events throughout the year, such as the Memorial Day Parade. Praise for the professionalism and sharpness of the officers has been forthcoming from the public and other departments and the governor's wife, to name a few. The department successfully intervened in 12 overdose incidents as of this date by delivering doses of Narcan, which resulted in saving the lives of those who were suffering opioid overdoses. Without the timely intervention of these officers, additional lives would have been lost to the opioid epidemic. The department has hired 7 new patrol officers in 2018 and promoted a total of 8 officers to higher rank ranging from captain to sergeant. Okay, this is along the lines of shared services, which we've been working on throughout the year with the council and the mayor. Generated $230,000 in offsetting revenue through shared service agreements that provided public and environmental services to 4 additional municipalities in Morris County. These shared agreements not only generated considerable revenue for the township, but also realized efficiencies in service, delivery, forged sensible relationships based on geography, demographics, and service needs, and enhance the township's potential for relevant grant funding. By comparison, the Division of Health brought in $33,087 in 2017. Notably, the Division of Health successfully implemented the first year of a new public health shared service agreement in Jefferson Township. Improvements to the Rockaway Township Senior Center roof, funded largely by a $60,000 community development block grant secured by joint departmental in-house staff. Successfully applied for $75,000 community development block grant, provide necessary restoration to the interior of the Rockaway Township Senior Center. Performed 167 communicable disease investigations in Rockaway Township, Butler Borough, Borough of Victory Gardens, stopping and preventing the spread of infectious disease. Construction Department received more than 1,700 new permits. Board of Adjustment heard 19 applications. Planning Board heard 25 applications. Accessible walkway was completed at Peterson Field. Started the long-anticipated drainage improvement to Richard Mine Road. Received New Jersey Department of Transportation grant in the amount of $290,000 for Taylor Street roadway improvements. Applied for several other grants and are awaiting the results. A new dining establishment in Rockaway Township are the Cheesecake Factory and Miller's Ale House. Expansion in addition to ShopRite located within Rockaway Rivers Commons retail area is underway. Seabow Meat Products will soon open a newly renovated 94,000 square foot warehouse and processing facility along Green Pond Road. Seabow Meat Products, operating for over 40 years in the Bronx, New York, look to Rockaway Township for a larger facility to accommodate their growing businesses. The facility is currently undergoing inspections from the United States Department of Agriculture and is expected to create approximately 75 new jobs once they are up and running. Worked with the developers in 2018 to ensure our new residential communities at Pondview and Lennar are compliant with state and local regulations. Worked with Verizon and JCP&L to complete their cell tower to the point where they are up and running. Met with NJDOT to discuss upcoming safety improvements to Route 46 corridor within Rockaway Township. I want to assure the residents of Rockaway Township that it is moving forward, providing the services that you expect. We have a great staff committed to providing professional services. Another part of the administrative code is to recommend to the town council goals that I believe are in the best interest of the public. I would like to recommend the following goals for 2019. I would like to see as mayor, I would like to see the completion of the township basketball courts at Peterson Field. Gazebo projects at Parks Lake completed. See new businesses brought into town. Wawa, potentially reactivate that and explore bringing that into town. Improve our efficiency and to assist the residents through technology such as online payment of licenses, viewing open and closed permits, submitting applications and permits online, to name a few. New field, tennis courts and improvements to Peterson Field. Continue on our paving schedule, and we hope to get a website redesign and improvements. I would like to thank the volunteers, staff, and professionals without whom we would not be able to continue to provide the level of service that the residents expect. To the Township Council, I wish them luck in 2019, and I'm looking forward to working with you to accomplish these goals and working together for the betterment of our community. I am committed to put time and effort in for our citizens. As Steve Jobs has said, great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people. Together we can succeed. Thank you. I'm just going to move on to my appointments for mayor's appointments. For Clean Community Service Coordinator, it's a one-year term. I have a lot of the appointments. What I did is I left them the same. I didn't feel that it was, at this point in time, I'm serving as a one-year unexpired term, and I'm learning the town as I go along. I'm learning who the staff is. So I didn't want to make any drastic changes. So I decided to leave most of the people that are currently on, who wanted to continue on these boards, I left them in place. So we can learn together, and then I can get a feel for how it's going to go in 2019. So I have the Clean Communities Coordinator, Cara Salino. I have Community Development Revenue Sharing Committee. I have Pete Tabbitt and Allison Ferrante. I have Recycling Coordinator, it's one-year term, Al Noth. Okay, then I have some of these are going to be strictly mayor's appointments, and some are with the advice and consent of the council, and I'll get to the ones with the advice and consent of council after I read the mayor's appointments. The Environmental Commission, most of those people stayed the same. I have Pat Matarazzo, I have Craig Barkhausen, Keith Diagnilio, Lisa Salberg, Mark Heiler, David Forti, and Jack Elko. I have the Environmental Subcommittee. I have Pat Matarazzo as a chairperson, Craig Barkhausen, Mark Heiler, David Forti, for the town, and Iaciofano and Perrone. They have to serve on certain committees, I've been told, according to our statute.
Council President, we don't have any of these submitted to the council.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we have an agenda that was submitted to the council as well as the public, and was also advertised. What you're reading from is not something that's been approved by the council president for the agenda prior to me being here, so it's very difficult to follow since the mayor's appointment of the agenda that was submitted and approved only has on 7, A, B, and C. So what you're adding now, we have no information of that whatsoever.
Okay, these are mayor appointments, they're not with advice and consent, I'm just trying to make them tonight. I mean, it's been done that way in the past.
We usually
What I
have it on the
remember?
agenda to show it all.
No.
On there.
No, they're standard appointments, they're not any changes. I remember it this way last year, when I sat up there, that it was done this way, was following protocol.
Council President.
We can't hear her.
Go ahead, Vice President Abrahamson.
With all due respect, the next year's agenda had everything listed.
Yeah, Council President, you need a written list from the administration, if for no other reason than for the minutes for the clerk.
We'll furnish a list.
I'll give you the list.
Yeah, we'll give you a list.
I mean, do you have a list that you can actually present us right now?
I just have this. You want to give it to me right now?
It's just really difficult to follow it, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, no problem. And I apologize, it's been busy. I'm going through a little bit of a flux trying to figure out all this stuff. I've been stopping in and I've been going through all these, trying to seeing who's wanted to be involved still and who doesn't.
And when was this list prepared, Mr. Mayor?
This has been ongoing. Actually,
today.
Yeah, actually today we finished it.
So perhaps there could be excuse me, Council President, may I be recognized?
You may, Mrs. Abrahamson.
Since it was just presented to the council today, could not please be put on the next agenda?
No.
They may have some meetings, Council President. Meetings, maybe they won't be able to go in February.
We'll only have the meeting is next Tuesday.
I'm saying, like, I don't know who's the one that's on, just saying maybe maybe they say they had a meeting next week or something, and we wait until the following meeting. They may miss their meetings if they already are on the meeting.
If it was that dire, though, wouldn't you think we would have got I mean, I understand what you're saying, but if it was that important and there was meetings that were coming up that were very delicate, let's say, as far as timing.
With all due respect, Council President.
Hold on. Vice President, Councilman Sackett still has the floor.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just saying, just in case they had, like, maybe they had a meeting tomorrow night or something, and if we don't, we have, his appointments.
No, I understand that. Were you aware of all these appointments prior tonight?
I'm just listening to you right now.
You haven't seen this before?
I saw the list before.
You did?
Like an hour ago.
Okay.
But I didn't just, written pen.
I didn't hand this list out to anybody.
Well, it's something on the agenda, though. Like,
Okay, it is, they're mayor appointments. They're under the purview of the administration. They don't need to be voted on. So, I mean, I think it would just be in the best interest to move them forward tonight. Everyone has the list. They're who I'm going to be appointing.
I'm the only one that has a list, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, but you can get the list at some point. They're going to be appointed whether the council reviews the list or not. They're appointments that are made by the mayor.
What's that?
I don't understand.
You just make them anyways. Let them make them.
It's just, you know what, I mean, since you have it the way it is, I'm not going to contest it.
Okay.
But, I mean, it just,
I'll
for obvious reasons.
Okay, it's been busy. There's no slight to anybody. No one had this.
That's not justifiable, though. I mean, other people have gotten it.
It is. These are mayor appointments.
Okay.
Not advice.
No, I understand.
So I'm not.
Nobody objects.
They're mayoral appointments.
Mr. Jedynak, please.
Council President, if the public has a right to see the mayor's
We can't hear you.
Council President, the mayor's appointments should have been on the agenda. They should have been submitted. The public has a right to see those appointments in print on the agenda, just like all the other appointments, including the appointments of council that take place. So I agree with your sentiment, Council President.
And pick and choose what works. The public doesn't know there's going to be a new president. Did you know there were come last Friday? Mayor's address. Funny, it's not on here.
Mr. Puzio, Mayor Puzio, please continue. We can move this along. But in the future, something of this, I mean, it's just not one different change. It's just, you have a large amount that's on here. Obviously, it was premeditated to put it together prior to the meeting. So the next time, if you could, for the benefit of the council, as well as the public, if you could just give us a copy of that.
Council President.
Can I make one comment? I told Mrs. Clipperton we were working on these, And she was advised by the council president, if I didn't have any names, he wouldn't put it on the agenda. And we were working on the names, and we didn't have them timed by the cutoff date, so that's why we have them on tonight. That's why we were having...
No, I appreciate that, Mrs. Seeger.
Okay.
But since you were dealing with the clerk, did you provide this with the clerk prior to the meeting?
No, because
Okay,
we just
that's all.
finished it.
Thank you.
Council President.
Work together.
We did. I came in about 6:30, and we were still going over this list, so I didn't have everything completed. I had to go over it and get a little bit of background from Ms. Seeger and Mr. Iaciofano.
Council
I understand
President.
that, but there is also a 24-hour period before you can modify the agenda without the consent of the council president.
Oh, we tried that.
Mr.
Follow the
Sackett,
rules or we don't.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jedynak.
Council President, thank you. Since we didn't have the benefit of being able to see these on the agenda because they weren't submitted prior to this meeting, how do we in fact know that these appointments that the mayor is about to read are in fact only appointments of the mayor and don't require the council's advice and consent? Who checked that and especially since this was only completed today, who checked these appointments to ensure who's we?
Ms. Seeger.
The statute, I checked with the statute, and I wrote...
Which statute did you check
Right
with?
there, they're written right next to the name. You can see them, Tucker.
I don't see anything because nothing was presented to the council.
Mr. Kelley can see it, and I wrote right next to it the statute that it attains to.
2-33.
You mean as far as the code?
This
Your
is
reference to the code?
This is the administrative code.
No, it will.
Okay.
Mayor, continue, please.
Thank you.
That's not how it happens, Mr. Waters.
Okay, the Environmental Subcommittee, Chairperson, Pat Matarazzo. I have Craig Barkenhausen, Mark Heiler, David Forti. Iaciofano and Perone, the town attorney, has to be part of that group, part of that committee. I have Parks and Recreation Planning Committee. There's 5 members, 2 alternates. They're appointed for a 1-year term. I have Doug Brooks Sr., I have Doug Brooks Jr., Doug Bratton, and Jonathan Sackett are going to serve on that committee. I have the Shade Tree Commission, which the chairperson is going to be Edith Yates, and then I have Linda Hiller, Mark Heiler, Robert Thomas, Parole, Chris McMorland. Finance Review Board. It's 1 member appointed by the mayor. It's a Class 2 member, and that's going to be our very own Lisa Palmieri. Library Board of Trustees. As mayor, I sit on that board by statute, but my designee is going to be Neil Weiss. I have Dr. James McLaughlin, who is the superintendent of schools. I have Marie Honorevoli, Joy Weinreich, Ray Furman, Neil Weiss, Lori Shorno, Aaron Tomasini, and Carol Tauber. Office of Emergency Management. Coordinator is going to be Captain Robert Shear. I have Chief Marty McParland. And then I had to reappoint Burt Parks. Safety Delegate Committee is going to be Chief McParland. Alternate delegate is Paul Riley. Planning Board. All the members are going to stay the same, except for I'm going to have a Class 1 is going to be, as mayor, I sit on the planning board now. Class 2 is Robert Shear, is going to be 1 year. Class 4, Frank Barilla, Jay Elko, Phyllis Hampman, David Washington. Ray Tahan is going to be moved from a alternate to a Class 4. Is Ray here?
Don't read it.
Thank you.
Okay, the attorney is going to be William Dimon. Planners, Joseph.
They picked that.
Okay. Municipal Alliance Committee, I have...
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, just real quick.
Yes.
On the Planning Board Committee under 54, 5.2,
Yes.
you have Board of Adjustments Class 5. Is that an error?
Class what?
Where are you looking?
Where's Class 5?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was mistaken as Mrs. Smith.
Okay.
But she sits on. I apologize.
Yeah, we don't read that one.
Okay. Municipal Alliance Committee is going to be the treasurer, Lisa Palmieri. Coordinator is Brenda Budd. I have employee representatives Susan Suey, Aaron Tomasini, and Doug Johnson. And then, give me a second, I apologize for the delay.
mayor appointment.
That's all we have.
I have the Citizens Rec Committee, that is with,
It's here. You've got to go to 8. mayor
which is,
That's with the consent of the council?
correct, correct. That's going to be,
finished for 7.
that's finished for 7, for just the mayor appointments that are exclusively under the mayor's auspice. And then there's the mayor's appointments, 8, which is with advice and consent of council. And the first committee that I'm going to deal with is the Citizens Recreation Committee. The chairperson, Robert Conlon. Then we have Margaret Argianziano, John Boylan, Tom McGinley, Kevin McClune, Gerard Nolan, Brian Toohey, Rich Oler, Jackie Bader, Nicholas Walwork, Steve Leo, and Amy Colas.
I'd like a motion for them to think the vote.
One more, I have the municipal attorney, the reappointment of...
Wait, they have to vote on that.
Yeah, we
Okay, I'm
have
going to
to
stop. I'm just getting a little direction over here. I'm going to stop right now, and you guys are going to have to vote on the advice and consent of council.
Council
appointments.
President.
That's the Citizen Recreation Committee.
You're going through the mayor appointments, and now you're going through the mayor appointments with consent of council?
Correct.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Councilman Jedynak, wanted to be recognized?
Sure.
Council President, so the mayor just read the Citizens Rec Committee appointments he seeks the advice and consent of the council on, which were not submitted to the council and so don't appear on the agenda. I have a copy of the minutes from last year before me, and there are significant changes in the names or the order that they were read, certainly different than the order they appeared in last year's appointments. The council is being asked to vote, and we've not heard these names prior to him, the mayor, just reading them. With regard to voting on those mayor's appointments that require the advice and consent of council, typically the way the council has given the advice and consent is that all of the mayor's appointments with the advice and consent have been read into the record. A motion and second has been made for them as a block, and then council members have had the opportunity to vote, as we often do, on consent agendas and other items for all, or against all, or abstain all, or to piecemeal vote for one, not on others, etc., as this council is used to voting piecemeal on items. But generally, all of them are read, and then a single motion, a single second has taken place. And I confirmed that with the minutes of last year's agenda as well. I would take issue, though, with receiving these last-minute appointments that require our advice and consent. It's difficult to give advice when you don't know the names until they're read at the meeting.
Yeah, they're saying except for 3.
All of these?
I'm done, Council President.
Mr. Mayor, since there was some consideration towards what you added just now to the agenda as far as your appointments, could there be some consideration where the mayor and consent that were not on the agenda, those particular appointments, can we hold until the next council meeting where you can provide us with some information of each one of those individuals that you have now appointed with the consent from us? Would that be fair?
Sure, there's 3 new names on there. The other ones, I know, Council.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I know Councilman Jedynak asked for resumes on some of the people. I don't have resumes for all the people who have been there for a certain amount of years, but I did have someone place resumes up on the dais as prior to the meeting.
No.
Did you?
We didn't get them. They were put up there, Dave?
They're all up there, yeah.
They're all up there, put on your
Yeah,
seat.
for the 3 new
before the
people.
meeting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're just,
Okay, no, it's fair
I mean,
enough.
do you think in consideration of what we have,
Hey, how about
Do you-
we hold off on the 3?
Council
Can we hold on the 3 names?
I make a motion to
Would
table.
you rather?
Make a motion to table it to the next meeting.
hey, Mr. Jackson's here, if we can, did you document that for the time? Are you?
I have more comments, but I'll let the others speak.
Council President, I make a motion to second those appointments to the next meeting so they can table it to the next meeting.
Second? Any discussion?
Which appointments are we referring to?
And can you identify the appointments that you're talking about?
For the appointments for the Citizen Recreation Committee.
Yeah, Council President, if you're having discussion, with regard to all of the mayor's appointments with advice and consent of council, the council didn't receive any letters of interest or resumes prior to the meeting. What we did get when the clerk requested same regarding those appointments that were provided in advance was a single email, a single sentence email from the mayor on December 28th that said, "My memo, council, please see the list below for my appointments for 2019. That one sentence is all the documentation that we received for all the appointments that require the advice and consent of council, and I would ask the council to contrast that with all of the council appointments for which they received at least a letter of interest and a resume. The council appointments are all volunteer except for the auditor. On the mayor's appointments, they're almost all paid appointments with the exception of a couple of volunteer appointments. And yet we didn't receive anywhere near the same documentation for these paid appointments that we did."
The town attorney has a history that's been proven. You don't need a resume for that. You've gone against him and you know he's very good at what he does.
Yeah, these are all... The resumes that you received are what I received. There hasn't been an overflow or an exuberance for people to come and volunteer. So I'm actually short. I'm actually short people for certain positions, for certain committees, because no one has put in any resumes. The people that we advertise, we put on the website for positions that we're opening up, right? Councilman Jedynak?
If you're asking me a question, Mr. Mayor, not a single one of the paid appointments that you're making this evening or requesting the council vote on are you short on. In fact, you have more than you had January of last year. So with regard to the paid appointments, and by the way, none of these paid appointments by the mayor has the council received any documentation with regard to letters of interest or resumes for paid appointments. Taxpayer money is used to pay these people, and this council doesn't know anything about them other than their names on a page.
All right, listen, I'm not going to get into mental gymnastics with you, Councilman Jedynak. These appointments are the same. They've been here. These people, the paid ones that are on the list, they've been here. They've been serving in the position. You've had the list for a month now, as far as the paid appointments. So I'm going to go ahead and make them. You can vote as you see fit. I have no problem tabling the citizens rec if you want a little bit further information. Those people that are on there, except for 3, are new appointments. Only 3 are new to that committee. The other ones have been sitting on the committee for quite some time. Exactly how many years, I don't know, but they've been there since I've been
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Sackett had made a motion, and it was second as well, to table
Nobody can hear you.
the directors committee, so we can just move forward with that. I understand your situation. I just glanced at the actual resumes that we have, that we just got now, and some of them dated back from 2018. We could have had them, none of us were CC'd on it. So again, the consideration that was given to what you had done with the agenda, modifying with your appointments that weren't on the agenda that was approved, less than 24 hours, and what we have now with the consent of the council. If we could just, again, follow the motion that was made by Councilman Sackett.
Fair enough.
Second by Councilman Palumbo, and then maybe we can move forward and do a roll call.
Fair enough.
Can we do a roll call?
This is on table. Yeah, this is table. Table.
Yeah. Councilman Sackett, you made a motion to table the rec committee appointments with the consent of council until we get further information on those members. Would that be accurate, Council?
One more time, sorry.
I was just reiterating your motion, that you wanted to make a motion to table the appointments with from the mayor, as well as the consent of the council.
Correct.
Concerning the members of the rec committee.
Correct.
All right, we can do that for the next council meeting that we have. We can add to it.
Council President.
Council Vice President?
Did Mr. Sackett make a motion to table the appointment by consent and approval by the council. Is that what I'm hearing?
You're hearing that in relation to only the Citizens Rec Committee, the CRC. Yeah, we just got the resumes just literally now to look at, and he had made that motion. It was seconded by Councilman Palumbo to move forward. So if we could just kind of expedite this, I think we've exhausted the conversation on that. And if we can just do a roll call.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
President Kelley?
Yes, that's 9 yes, 0 no's. Motion carries to table this to the next meeting.
Okay, I still have, I'm just going to finish up with 8, and that'll be the last portion of the mayor's. Just what's on the agenda. That's been on the agenda. Okay, I have the affordable, mayor's appointments, number 8 on the agenda, mayor's appointments with advice and consent of the council. Okay, A, affordable housing officer, 1-year term. It's going to be Valerie Schreck. You guys have to vote on that. Or do you want to do it as a block? I can go through them all, you could do it, and I can do all the 8 as a block, or do you want to vote on them one by one?
I think we'll do them all as a block, what we've done in the past.
That is typically how we've done it, Council President.
Everybody in agreement with that? You can move on, we'll do it as a block.
A, I'm going to back up a second. It's number 8 again, mayor's appointments with advice and consent of the council. A, affordable housing officer, 1-year term, Valerie Schreck. B, municipal attorney, 1-year term, Iaciofano and Perone. C, bond counsel, 1-year term, Deborah Verdame. Municipal prosecutor, 1-year term, Peter King, with an alternate of Lisa Thompson. Public defender, 1-year term, Joseph O'Toole, John Gray as an alternate, Gerald Kelly as an alternate, Joseph Bell Jr. as an alternate. And that is it for the mayor's appointments.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second.
We got a motion made by Councilman Sackett, seconded by Councilman Quinn. With this, the council can either vote for all, you can vote for each individual on here on A, B, C, and D, and E. So, example, you can say yes to A, no to B through E, identify just one. I think we've done this before in the past outside of this particular vote. So,
Council President, discussion.
is there any discussion? I'm sorry.
Council President, I have some discussion if there's no one else who wishes to speak. Again, with regard to these appointments, all of which are paid positions paid by the taxpayers of Rockaway Township, this council has not received a letter of interest or resume for any of these. The statement was made by the administration that there are no new ones. There are in fact 3 new ones that differ from January of last year, and I have the minutes in front of me. So we have new appointments being made that are paid appointments. We don't have any information.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I don't know if you wanted to address Mr. Jedynak.
There's nothing to address. I just spoke with Ms. Seeger. The alternates last year were not on And excuse me for not memorizing last year's agenda. I don't do that. I don't have statute and I don't have code memorized. They may not have been on last year, so if I'm speaking out of turn or my information is inaccurate because I don't have last year's paperwork in front of me, I apologize. It's not to misrepresent or mislead anyone. From speaking with Ms. Seeger, this side conversation that we had.
We were trying to be more transparent because these are all people we paid for the last few years, and we just put all their names out here so you would know the alternate and the defender. I think we're only required to know the public defender, only to name one. We can leave the alternates. They can be hired without consent, I guess, technically.
But Mr. Seeger, was there a request for any of the information on the individuals that the mayor is making his appointments?
No, just if I needed pay to play, I did. I got it all, and these have to be appointed, then we'll, this is the same people as we've had for the last couple of years, as far as I know. No changes. So I figured everybody knew them.
Council President, I would point out that there is at least one new council member since last year. And if the administration wanted to be transparent, they would provide resumes or at least a letter of interest for these appointments.
In all fairness, the new member, Councilman Jackson. Councilman Jackson, did you want any information prior to your vote?
So I just want to be clear. All the defender, the prosecutor, the bond counsel, none of them have changed.
No.
No, then I don't need any.
No changes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Clerk, please roll the call. Make the call.
Councilmember Quinn?
I vote yes on all.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes on A through E.
Councilmember Jedynak?
No on all.
Councilmember Palumbo?
I'm voting yes on A, C, D, and E. No on B.
Come on, Vic.
Come on, Vic.
Councilmember Smith?
I vote yes on all, no on B. Not yes on all. No on B and yes on the rest.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes on all.
Vice President Abrahamson?
I vote yes on A, C, D, and no on B.
President Kelley?
I'm going to say yes on A, C, D, and E, and no on B.
Why?
Because he beat you.
I have 8 on A, 8 on B, 8 yeses on C. Council President.
Not recognized, Jeremy.
Council President voted no on all. I'm sorry, Council and Jedynak voted no on all.
You said 8 on B. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, you're right. We have 5 noes on B, 4 yeses on B. On C, we have 8 yeses, 1 no. D, we have 8 yeses, 1 no. And E, we have 8 yeses, 1 no. Is that correct? So the appointment for A, C, D, and E pass, B does not.
We can't see it. What's B?
I'm sorry?
We don't have paperwork. What's B?
B? B is for the municipal attorney.
What's the problem?
Give you good advice all year.
This isn't transparent.
We have council appointments on number 9. And I'll bring them out again, and then we can vote on it as a block. You can individually pick out who you want. The council appointments are A, the auditor for 1 term, is Navakia and Company. B, planning board class 3 member 1 term is Phyllis Smith. C, financial review board is Dan Konsicki. D, zoning board of adjustment full member 4-year term is Jim Loftus and Adam Lazardi. And E is environmental commission 1-year term is alternate 1 is Judith Brown. And alternate 2 is Charles Bogaset. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Kelley?
Council President.
Who is the one? Lasardi? I'm looking for a Lasardi on here. I don't see it.
On what?
I have it on the agenda here. It's number 9.
Okay.
Under D.
Okay, I apologize. An older. It was on the last copy.
This agenda is the 7th of January.
Yep.
Which one you got?
I have 2. I have one. It's on the latest one, the one I picked up from the table.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're right?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
My mistake.
Councilor Saxon.
Just quickly, as we're making the council appointments, I spoke with Adam Lusardi on January 5th, and he told me he applied to be an alternate. And if you take a look at his resume, it does say alternate on here. He's not interested in a full-year term. We did have a bunch of other resumes received for full-year terms that were never given to the full council. We have a Carol Lucas who applied. We have Megan Knapp. We have Ray Tahan, and we have Douglas Romaine. Those are the resumes I know about. There could have been more. So I do recommend, Council President, since you're the new Council President, if we can, all the council appointments, since you're new, if we can table it to the next meeting so you can go through all the resumes and we can send them out to all the council, since they're council appointments, so we can all see it.
To your point, you mentioned earlier about the importance of that. We don't have a full board right now for the Board of Adjustment. We don't have the amount of members to actually have a full board.
But we do have other resumes.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but we also have the council president that created the agenda that we have right now moving forward. That's an issue.
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith being the councilwoman that's here, that's been the alternate on there.
She's fine.
And our auditor as well.
That's fine.
Again, you can vote on the block of the totality of it, from A through E, or you can individually pick out who you want.
Okay.
All right?
That sounds fair.
Any other discussions?
1 second. Councilman Sackett, your issues with D? Letter D.
My issues with D, correct.
Council President, there isn't a motion or second yet.
Do I have a motion to move forward and do a roll call? Joe Jackson makes a motion. Second by Council President Abrahamson. Clerk, do the roll.
Council President, are we amending D2 to be alternate rather than full?
Were you making a motion for that? I haven't heard anything from Mr. Lazardi with regard to that.
Yeah, if you take a look at his resume, it said alternate, and that's what he applied for. When I spoke to him this past Saturday, he said he didn't even know he was being appointed for full year. He did not seem interested in it. So I recommend putting him as an alternate.
So we want to make a motion?
I'll make a
We have
motion.
second for that motion to change Mr. Lazardi as a alternate member and Mr. Loftus as a full member?
That's
Not
fine.
the accurate point?
That's why I said we should be.
Yeah, he originally said tabling.
Table D, because there are other things. We don't know how many are available.
I understand.
Response. Maybe we can just table
As I
D.
indicated,
Yeah.
from meeting with the Board of Adjustments and the letters that we received from the attorney,
Spots are open.
we don't have it, we're missing 2.
2. 1 full and 1 alternate.
Just 2, because it alternate, if it wasn't a full, we'd still be able to be voting.
Use the microphones.
So you want to make a motion to modify to an alternate and a full member?
Microphones.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion that, yep, full and an alternate.
Okay, so if I'm correct on this, your motion is to keep Jim Loftus as a full member,
Yes,
and you want to modify D for Adam Lazardi as an alternate member?
correct.
And Mr. Freelander, you're seconding that? The clerk can do a roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. Motion carries 9 to modify D of council appointments. Again, Jim Loftus as a full member, Adam Lazzardi as a alternate member. Now, if we can continue with the motion by Councilman Jackson and second by Abrahamson, I'm sorry. Clerk, please call the roll. The motion was for the approval of 9A through E.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Council,
A, B, C, D, and E, Jeff?
All.
Okay, all.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes to all.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes on all.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes, on all.
President Kelly?
Yes, A through E. 9 yeses, 0 nos, motion carries. We have the council president's appointments, and it would be A, Technological Advisory Committee, and that would be Mark Frega and John Knapp. We have 11 would be approval of minutes, December 11, 2018 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mrs. Smith makes the motion. Council President Abrahamson seconds. Clerk, please do the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
I'll abstain on the Technology Committee, and I will vote on the approval of the minutes, yes.
There's no voting on the council president appointment.
Well, then I'll vote on the minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was doing the motion for. So yes on 11 approval of minutes?
What I said.
Okay.
Council President, was there any discussion on the minutes?
Is there any discussion on the minutes? None. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
No.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. If I can just take a moment, generally,
Council President, we need you to read the...
oh, I'm sorry, we have 8 yeses and 1 no. Motion carries for the approval of the December 11th, 2018 minutes for the regular meeting. Before we go into the ordinances to introduce, we have an actual format that we have in our ordinances of how the agenda is set. And in the past, we've had it where the open public portion's been a little bit later after some of the consent agenda to somewhat expedite the work. And depending on what we have here in ordinances to introduce, generally after ordinances to adopt, we would have the open public portion. So at this time, I would like to move the open to the public portion much earlier for the residents in the audience. And I have on the sign-in sheet, Michael Lardy. You can come to the microphone, please.
Michael Lardy, 19 North Brookside Drive. You killed a lot of what I was going to say by moving the open to the public now. So I'm glad to see that maybe things moving forward. You know what it's like to be out here. You spent many years out here, so I do appreciate that. Next, I'd like to see some nameplates. This poor guy here is just a metal plate. And a microphone for everyone.
It's actually Councilmember Metal Plate, so.
Yes, well, that could be. Maybe he has one in his head.
Yeah, it could be.
But, and some microphones, and also the mayor's, and I think the business administrative has tape on hers.
And they are in the process of, Mrs. Seeger, and I'm not going to take away your 5 minutes.
That's fine.
But Mrs. Seeger, if you can just inform Mr. Lardy, we discussed this, and I know that you're in the process of getting those microphones.
Yeah, they're on order, and the company said, I thought they would be up by now, but maybe
That's fine,
February.
as long as it's in the work.
It is, and it's moving forward with that.
Very good.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You really killed everything else I was going to say by moving this forward. So I do appreciate it, and hopefully, moving forward, we, residents and the council, could work together as one, and with the administration, much better than in the past.
I look forward to that. And if I can just touch on, you did say something before. I have been a member in the public for quite some time, and I know what it's like. Your emotions get pretty hot, you have an interesting thing to say, or you think something's going on, and you're in the audience, and you're just waiting for that time. You sign in, and it's emotional. You're in there, the 5 minutes come real quick, you don't realize it. Some people don't have the ability just to go up there and rattle it off real quick. So I want you to know, and the rest of this council to know, I do recognize that. I don't want to have to put a timer on anybody. I think everybody can police themselves when they come up to the microphone to speak. And if there's in that mid-thought, and there's an extended time that you need, I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to interrupt you on that. And if I do, I'll give you the extra amount of time. So in the future, moving forward, I just hope that not only you, but members of the public, as well as this council administration, are going to recognize that it is something that I recognize and I've been subject to. I wasn't happy about it on the other end. So, all right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Hopefully the audience could, start anew and not yell out until we get to the point a couple meetings from now. If we're not being respected, then they'll revert back to the way they were. But let's start fresh and give the council a chance to prove themselves changed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Mrs. Degman.
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. I'm addressing the former council president this evening in regard to my being reprimanded at the last council meeting because I stated that the clerk was responsible for putting the agenda together and there were errors in that agenda, and therefore I, for one, didn't feel that the current clerk was performing her jobs properly. And after I returned to my seat, the council president proceeded to scold me by saying that the administration was responsible for preparing the agenda, not the clerk. Since I usually do my homework before I speak, I was a bit confused, but since I could no longer respond, I went home to check my facts, only to find that Township Code 1971 3-4G, Ordinance O-13-2, Section C, clearly states that my statement was indeed correct and the council president was incorrect. And it says here, under Section C, the agenda for each regular and special meeting of the council shall be prepared by the clerk. And that's the first part of it. On another subject,
Can I just interject and talk about that real quick? No. If I may, I'm not going to take our time away. Or do you want to continue, then we can comment after?
I'd rather continue.
Okay.
On another subject, in the future, I suggest that the council vice president speak in session when she disagrees with me instead of yelling at me in the hallway of the building from the door on the way out of the building. To be honest, I really didn't understand why she was yelling at me, but I do know why she was so upset with me, since the township can only have an acting municipal clerk for 1 year, and it can't be carried over to another year.
Next on the list is Deborah Linnell. Did I say that right, Mrs. Linnell? You're welcome.
Okay. All right, I've been attending these meetings for several months now, and despite everything that has happened in that time, I'm like really short. Despite everything that has happened in that time, not too much has really changed in how the former council president and his voting bloc operate. I had to quickly change my notes, so bear with me here. I mean, even if we take the devastating loss of Mayor Mike out of the equation, and that's a big if, we still got Mr. Jedynak censoring Facebook posts and spinning facts to fit his preferred narrative, the stunt he pulled with Inglesino, the appointment and continued employment of an uncertified clerk who continues to make all kinds of convenient mistakes. You're meddling in the recall, which was, let's face it, nothing short of ballsy even for you. We still got Mr. Kelley, AKA Council President Petty LaBelle over here, perfecting his nice guy routine while nitpicking about health benefits and decades-old sewer assessments, and hounding the mayor over his own appointments for no other reason than to give him a hard time while wasting hours. I'm sorry, I'm just not buying the whole nice guy thing. I'm not. So you have to prove me wrong, Mr. Kelley. And a lot of you who would follow your now former CP off a cliff if that's where he led you, say nothing as he continually goes after Mayor Puzio and Mr. Iaciofano, who repeatedly provides sound legal advice which you choose to ignore. And, Mr. Jedynak, even in your departure as council president, you continue your love of deliberate chaos in every way possible, including tonight's circus of selecting Mr. Kelley as your successor, while knowing full well the majority of people in this room who put you on that dais would prefer Mr. Sackett in that position in a heartbeat. Scheduling and rescheduling meetings with no regard for township employees, fellow members, or certainly any of us. Now, if you could maybe look up from your dictator's handbook, that's an actual book, for once, you might actually learn something about what it means to achieve respect and power instead of power alone. Because power alone is short-lived, my friend.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Waters?
I don't know, we're no longer doing This Is Who I Am and This Is Where I Live. Jim Waters, 48 Seneca Avenue. Mr. Council President, Council, Administration, faithful audience people, and the blue team. I thought I'd do something uncharacteristic, at least for me. I've got two compliments to offer, and you know I give those out very rarely. One is to Mr. Kelley for his acknowledgement that he's not going to hold anybody to the 5-minute rule, which has been on and off for a number of years, and we're looking forward not to be cut off mid-sentence. So we think that's
I'm sorry,
quite a positive change.
You have to say, I'm only kidding.
You need a gavel if you're going to try to do that one.
I have it over here.
Okay.
Keep it over here.
Secondly, I've been doing a little research project because I was curious, along with our township attorney, as to how long it had been since we'd actually had a meeting on January 1st. And I want to say that our acting township clerk had been very helpful in my research project in obtaining minutes and shuffling them back and forth, so I appreciate that help. Actually, I made most of these notes at the January 1st meeting. And I said offhand, I knew if I was not the first person to speak, I would not be the first to comment on the lack of need to hold a meeting on the 1st, since we have not held a meeting on the 1st in 43 years. And since my reading of the code indicates that it wasn't necessary to hold a meeting on the 1st, and the state statute doesn't even make it a requirement for our Faulkner form strong mayor council to even have a reorganization meeting at all. Our township code does not define what a reorganization meeting is. Frequently, like tonight, they've been held as a reorganization meeting combined with a regular meeting. So what's the big deal? Take a vote, move it to the 8th, keep it on Tuesday. I can see the point that in an election year, we might have officials who had been elected but not sworn in. If something happens during the first week, I think as a council we can have an emergency meeting and address that need without the, to me, ridiculous opening of a township building and employment of the blue team, overtime for other people to show up on a night when you were pretty sure only 3 people would be here.
You want me to address that now?
If you like, while I check my cards here.
Yeah, Mr. Waters, in regard to your comments with the meeting that took place for the reorg, as the code states, it says the first Tuesday of January at 7:30. And it's
It
very...
does not say that.
It does. It does say that in the code. The council shall meet annually for organization on the first Tuesday of January at 7:30 p.m. That's code 2-5.2.
Why haven't we done that in 43 years?
And that's a good question, but because it's been done in the past doesn't mean that it's been correct in the past. However, even though that it's been something that's been done before, and I believe that you're aware, and I'll give your time, I believe that you're aware we have pending litigation, which surrounds meetings, notices of meetings, codes and statutes. So being that there's pending litigation, I think it would potentially be reckless to somewhat gamble on to have a meeting or not have a meeting as per the code, because it kind of gives the example that maybe perhaps we disregard the code, especially while we're in pending litigation that hasn't been resolved yet. And then under the Faulkner Act and under the 4069A 37 on, they're supposed to be within the first 7 days of January.
That's incorrect.
Which most of them say.
That's
They're
incorrect.
silent under the Faulkner Act.
Yes, it is.
But most of them say within the first 7 days. Some are the first day of January.
How many municipalities in Morris County held a meeting on the 1st?
In the past or in this year?
No, this year.
Well, there was 3. There was Montville, there was Boonton, and I believe...
Borough form of government, borough form of government.
I understand. But the code still says the first Tuesday.
And it says that it's at a regular meeting, you can take a vote and set it any day that you want. And if there's no difference between reorg and regular, and there's no definition of what a reorg meeting is in our entire code. Anyway, the point's been...
I mean, we can agree to disagree on that, but under the current atmosphere that we have going on with pending litigation, I don't think I would actually make that test. I would rather have it didn't take place. I came here. 2 other members came here. The department heads don't get overtime for it. The police department was open. Members of the public came in here. There were other organizations that took place that day with Rockaway, with the fire department and other fire departments throughout the Morris County. And then we had 3 municipalities that had a reorg on their first day. Regardless of the form of government, it doesn't make a difference.
Yes, it does. Under the Faulkner Act, they're required to have their meeting on the 1st.
Well, they're not.
We're not. We're a Faulkner Act mayor council, Form F.
Exactly.
And we're not required to have our meeting on any date.
But our code says we are.
The code says it can be changed. But anyway, I think we ought to discuss
Yeah, I
this
understand
the next time around.
Discussion and moving forward.
I think it was deliberately inconvenient. And from what I understand, there was sufficient information provided by administration people and council people to the former council president that there wouldn't be a quorum. So why go through with a charade?
Well, it's not a charade.
It was a charade.
And again, that's your opinion. But the mayor had a staff meeting, directed all the staff members not to attend. The council president creates the agenda with the clerk for the reorg as per the code. We followed the code in light of the litigation that's still pending at the moment, and nobody was taking any chances on that. And that's just how it was.
6 people weren't showing up in advance.
Mr. Wachowski, please.
Well, there appear to be different sauce for the goose and different sauce for the gander here.
Depends on how you look at it.
Well, you were giving the administration a hard time for not having items on the agenda, and I don't see anything on the agenda for your election as council president here. Since this was made 2 days ago, published 2 days ago, I can only assume that the former council president made up his mind within the last 2 days to resign.
That's something you have to ask. It's news to us. It came up here now. Mr. Sackett and Mr. Freelander already had it in their situation to appoint it. So I think at the moment that it happened, the decision was made on that, and it wasn't part of the agenda, and it happened now.
Okay, fine. By my count, we've had 3 meetings out of 22 scheduled meetings that were legal this year, and we're lucky that the other 19 weren't contested in court because they all would have been thrown out. And now from rumblings we're hearing about approvals that may or may not have been done with the township, acting township clerk. Anything that's transpired since 12/31 midnight may be subject to ending up in court as well. I got other stuff, but I've covered as much as I'd like to right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mr. Dio.
Patrick Dio, 11 Valley Road. First, I'd like to congratulate you, and I wish you well in your president of the council. And I also hope that in the coming year, we have a new mayor, and we have a new council president. I hope that we will see a lot more cohesive workings between the council member and the mayor's office, so that we have more accomplishments on a compromising basis and resulting moving forward. So I wish you well, Mr. President Kelley and Mayor Puzio. But I do have a couple of questions. Following up on the gentleman's comment about the meeting, I read the code, and the code to me clearly states that the council shall meet annually for organization on the first Tuesday of January at 7:30 p.m. Now, my understanding is that provision has been in the statute for quite some time. Now, once before at a meeting, I had mentioned that I think that maybe council members and now the mayor, new mayor, should become refreshed in our administrative code and what it says and what it doesn't say, and how to conduct a meeting and how not to conduct a meeting. Now, if there was a problem with having the meeting on the 1st, every council member here, including mayor, was a council member, with the exception of Mr. Jackson, was well aware, or should have been well aware, that come January 1, 2019, that there's going to be a council meeting. We had 12 months to do something about it. Nothing was done about it. So I really urge the council members to maybe take a look at the administrative code. Maybe there's training programs for new council members, for new council presidents, for new mayors, so that we can move forward without this kind of chaos. I mean, I showed up for that meeting, and I didn't see 6 people. I'd like to know why the 6 people weren't here when it's my understanding that they were in town. So maybe at some point in time, the council members who weren't here might share that with the public as to why they decided not to come. And if you have a good reason, fine. But I would like to know what the error. Second thing I'd like to talk about is there's a statute in your administrative code, 2-3.1H, requires the mayor to have public budget hearings in November. Now, I know I'm not at every meeting.
We did. We did have them.
Was there a public meeting?
Yes.
When was that? When was it publicized?
It was publicized in the paper. Mr. Kelley was at every one of them.
And I did, if I could just interject on that, Mr. Puzio, Mayor Puzio, you weren't in attendance of that.
No, because I work.
I understand, and it wasn't criticizing you, just that you weren't there. There was very little that were there because of the timing of that. However, I did question, Mrs. Seeger, if you actually noticed it, because there was no minutes, there was no approval of any minutes that you had taken. You told me that you were going to take minutes and provide minutes. I never received any of that.
It's not a meeting that's a public meeting like the council meeting. It's a meeting that I'm required to have. I don't have a secretary or anything like that. It's just required by the Faulkner Act to have those departmental meetings in November to discuss the budget, and we did.
And you noticed those meetings?
Yes.
In both newspapers?
I don't know if I did it in both. I'd have to check with the secretary.
And
Yes,
who was
it
the one
on
that provided?
And it was on the website.
And who provided the notice?
The administrative staff.
And was it put in our bulletin boards in both locations?
I can't answer that.
What time of day? And what time of day was it noticed and was it public?
I cannot remember November, but you were at all the meetings.
I know, I asked those questions, I didn't receive any information on that. I believe the first meeting was November 7th?
I don't know offhand, sorry.
And you're an RMC too, correct?
What does that have to do with that?
Just asking.
What?
Council President, if I may.
Councilman Jedynak?
I believe that the meetings were held during the day, the timing of which, as Mr. Puzio stated, he couldn't attend because he was at work, as were most of the public who might have otherwise attended. That is reflected in the code, as you pointed out. I think that's something that should be amended to have it in the evening when it's more accessible, like these meetings are, and to have minutes that are published for the public who can attend. Members of the Financial Review Board did attend. Councilmember Kelley attended as well.
Yeah, one of my concerns why I bring it up is because I think in terms of administration, one of the most important jobs, because it affects every one of us here, because we all pay real estate taxes, at least I hope we all pay our real estate taxes. We have a very sizable budget. And our real estate taxes over the last 20 years have just skyrocketed. And I know that none of you want to pay more taxes. But I think when we're talking about a budget, I don't think that the public hearings should be held during the day. I think they should be publicized so we can get as many people like we do here to come to these public hearings and talk about the budget. So I recommend in the future that the budget hearings be held in the evening.
They will be.
And that they be publicized.
Can I interject something? That was a meeting just for the administrative, to meet with the department heads, for them to give me their budgets. And you will have public meetings, and looking at the schedule tonight, it looks like 7 of them are scheduled for the month of March or February. And we always have public meetings at night when you all can attend. This was a staff meeting with department heads only, for them to present their budget to me as the business administrator and the mayor to make up their budget.
But it is supposed to be public.
It is, and it was.
Without public here. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you very much.
And just to answer Mr. Dio, moving forward, and I think Mayor Puzio can agree, we're going to look at this code, our administrative code, maybe make some changes, because even with the reorg, it started in 1971, and things have changed. It was very traditional to have reorgs on the first of the year. It used to be at 12:01 a.m., and then the statute had changed to 9 o'clock, then it changed to 12 o'clock. And I think we can work on our code to fit so it falls within any day within the first 7 days of January, to where we can modify that.
We are in the process, just so the council knows, and I've been spending a lot of time at Town Hall. My week off, I had a little bit of a Christmas break for my job, which was much needed, and I spent most of it here at Town Hall. We're in the process of codifying our ordinances, and it's an ongoing process, and that was something that I was going to bring up with you.
I have it in my briefcase.
Okay, whoever's on the ordinance committee, at some point, I want to have a meeting where the 3 of us, how many are on the committee? 3, where we sit down with Ms. Seeger, with the town attorney, at some point, I don't know when, I can't give you an exact date, but where we can sit down and talk about some of those ordinances that we want to adjust, so we can become a little bit more efficient, a little bit more on.
I agree.
Can I ask a question? Who's on the ordinance committee? Does that get appointed every year?
Yeah, we have...
At the reorg, does that get appointed every year, or is that something that carries over from year to year?
Well, it hasn't changed. You have the opportunity.
Yeah, we can modify and change it, the people that are there. Mr. Sackett is one of the members on the ordinance committee.
I know.
I believe Mr. Palumbo. And myself.
Who's on it?
He's not on the vehicle. Me and Jonathan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Council President, if I may, there's already an outstanding request with regard to amending the code with regard to the reorganization meetings, so that we can avoid, so that the council can have flexibility in future years and avoid meeting on the first if it so desires, while still meeting the obligation under the state statute. So that request is outstanding to the attorney.
Okay. But moving forward, though, Mr. Mayor, we'll go through those things. I'll be more than happy to meet with you. I can do it during the day. Just give me a day or two in advance to schedule around that. I know you have your work day too. Sure. With schools and stuff after 3 o'clock or whatever. It needs to be taken later too.
Do you know offhand who's on the committee?
I am the chair. I believe that Mr. Palumbo was the...
You know what?
You could have multiple
Don't
ones.
even worry. Don't even worry about it. We'll figure it out. Because we're not having the meeting right now.
Yeah, because everybody's on multiple committees combined that are on there. Next on the list is, I'm sorry.
Can I, Mr. Dio asked a question for the people who didn't come, can I respond to him?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so January 1st is a national holiday. Every year, we have a big family get-together at my house, and prior to the week prior to the meeting, we received legal opinion by our attorney that we were not required to have the meeting on the 1st, and that's why I didn't come. I was able to go to the firefighter ceremony earlier in the day because our company wasn't coming over till later. So that's why I didn't go.
Can I respond to this? Oh, absolutely. If any, I'm sorry, if anybody on this council wishes to respond, that's your prerogative.
Mr. Dio had personal business that day. I wasn't there. I'm over here. I had personal business. I wasn't there. Also, we did receive legal opinion and administration, and the council president knew in advance that I wouldn't be attending or participating. Well in advance.
Mr. Dio, I as well had told him in advance I would not be attending. I was with my family at a family function. It is a national holiday, and I spent it with my family. Thank you.
Myself, Mr. Dio, I also, right here, Jack Quinn, it's a national holiday. I also spent it with my family, as I always do. All right, and they knew well in advance that I was not attending.
I did not attend, and the administration knew as well. My grandson was home for a very short military leave, and family got together, and I was out of town that day.
Mr. Dio, if you weren't at the December meeting, that we had. At that meeting, I made a motion, 2 motions, and one of them was to change the January meeting, which I wasn't going to be at because I was out of town with my family for the holidays and New Year's. So I made that motion and it was disregarded to move it to January. Yes, and the motion was, I made the motion and it was seconded by Councilman Sackett.
And what was the vote?
There was no vote taken. It was bypassed, it was bypassed. My motion was not allowed to take a vote.
Council President.
Pass or fail, it should have been voted on.
Council President. Then, Mr. Flynn, are you done?
I'm not going.
No, Mr. Freelander, I said.
Yes,
are you
I'm
done?
sorry.
Mr. Jedynak? Yeah, the code states, as you read it earlier, Mr. Friedlander's motion would not change the code. I would also note that the first concern about the January meeting, by the way, the administration and the clerk's office were aware since January of 2018, I have an email to document it, that there would be a January 1st meeting in 2019. The first concern about that was raised by the mayor the day before the December 10th meeting, when there was no longer any opportunity in 2018 to change the code, to change it to another date other than 1/1. As we sit here today, right, we're having this meeting today because it didn't take place on the 1st. We now have additional legal exposure as a result of that. We'll see what comes of that. But there were council members who attended. One of the things that was changed last year is that council members had the ability to attend meetings by phone. Not a single member called into the meeting either. So we couldn't even get 2 others. However, as was pointed out, the fire department had their reorganization at 12:30. We had 5 council members then, but we didn't have 5 council members for the reorg meeting despite what the code said. It is what it is. We're here tonight meeting. We have a request in to change the code for the future so that the council will have clear flexibility rather than having we shouldn't even be having this discussion. The code should be clear enough. Please. The code should be clear enough. Okay. The code should be clear enough that there doesn't have to be any discussion as to what the interpretation is of the council having a meeting. That is a failure of the code, and those who had concerns about it should have raised it well in advance with the ability to actually make a change. But having gone through the experience once, the request is out there, and hopefully that change will be made sooner rather than later this year. so that for the future that we don't have to have that conversation again. Is everybody else? We're all good? Mr. Dio? Next on the list is Mr. Schmidt.
Well, does this go up, by the way? Can everyone hear me?
Down below, you can twist it. Yeah, you got your...
Did you have to wear an Eagle shirt tonight?
Can everyone hear me? John Schmidt, Gloucester City, New Jersey. Tonight's some question and opinion night, and I was going to start out with something. Before I do, let me preface. Can somebody please take out the gavel and gavel that guy? I mean, come on. Maybe some time limits in... I'm sorry, last year I started off the new year in the city of Millville on the opposite end of the state. And my remarks were not quite welcomed by some in the audience. I feel myself maybe history repeating in the northern part of the state tonight. I've been attending the meetings here off and on since September. And at least at the meetings, people have been calling for change. Whether you agree or disagree with people, there is change. And I'm not sure the governing body could get any worse than it did last year. You might not always agree with someone's decisions. You have a new council president and head of the legislative branch of government. You have a new mayor. Give them 60 days. Maybe they can get together once a month and talk. Maybe things can run a little smoother. This is local, it's supposed to work for people. You look at our government. I mean, I don't think the president and the Speaker of the House can sit down and have a cup of coffee together. Maybe you guys can. Maybe Tip O'Neill once said all politics is local. We're local here. Maybe it can work. Yeah, I've been calling for a reset button of sorts. Give it a try. What's the harm? And that includes everyone in the community on either side of the debate, people who come to meetings or people who don't, people who support one part of the Republican Party and the other part of the Republican Party. Give it a shot. Your people. I have a number of questions tonight. Township code that the gentleman had just asked, I actually crossed it off my list. But on Saturday, November 3rd, 2018, there was a notice published in the Daily Record. Township of Rockaway hearing notice in compliance with the optional municipal charter law. The business administrator of the Township of Rockaway will hold departmental hearings on the 2019 budget in the Rockaway Township Municipal Building, 65 Mount Hope Road, Rockaway, New Jersey, on Wednesday, November 7, 2018, from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m., and Thursday, November 8, 2018, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Your township code actually states in Section H, department heads are supposed to submit the budget in November for public hearings before mayor and administration. Public hearings. Irregardless on your township code, well, it doesn't seem like that was followed. Irregardless on your township code, I had a chance to really thoroughly look at it because I was kind of trying to do a draft rewrite based on some other Faulkner Act codes that have been more modernized and send it to you. Unfortunately, last time you really updated your code was 1971, and that's not something I could do in 72 hours. So that's how I'm kind of familiar with the code. It does need to be updating. And going through the code, I do have a couple questions. Department of Administration, Department of Community Services, Department of Public Works, and Department of Engineering. Do you know when those departments, maybe the council might have an idea, I'm not sure, this is more of administration, but do you know when those department heads will be filled with nominees? Because right now they all have acting and interim department heads. My next question, Township Attorney 2-6.3. An old pet peeve of mine from a couple years ago. So your code says the mayor appoints with the township attorney with the advice and consent of council for a term of 1 year. And the township attorney holds office for 1 year or until his successor has been appointed and qualified. My question to council, what does the word his mean? In reading the code, it references an attorney, the township attorney. And his refers to his or her, which could be an individual. And Township of Rockaway seems to have a corporation as its township attorney. Wondering if that is legal. Next question, acting clerk under 40A:9-133C. Once the office becomes vacant, you're allowed to appoint an acting clerk for 1 year, no questions asked. Year 2, well, they do need to meet some qualifications. Year 2, you would need to go through, get DCA approval, and then if you need a year 3, you need DCA approval. And of course, the clerk would need to be reappointed for a second year. Do you have DCA approval to have an acting clerk?
Yes, we do.
You do?
Yeah.
When will that resolution appointing an acting clerk come before this body? Because the first term was for 1 year from the date of Ms. Best leaving. So January 1st, 2019, you're into year 2 of having an acting clerk. You need to fill that.
And then there was an extension that was granted by the DCA for the additional time frame from the year starting of when the appointment was changed, I believe on June 30th. So then there was an extension of that until June 30th of 2019. I believe you can reach out to the DCA. You can probably speak to Mrs. Brennan and maybe assist you. This was something that was dealt with back in October of 2018.
Okay, thank you. Well, I understand.
Mr. Schmidt, I'm sorry, there was also, I believe there was another form that was a requirement to be filled out too for that.
The questionnaire form?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, which they have and documented that they received.
Okay. Just so I know, any response on township attorney or department heads?
You know, the department heads, I understand, is for the term of the mayor, since we've gone through 5 mayors. I don't know what Mayor Puzio intends to do.
Just stepping out to use a lavatory.
We could just hold off with that and when he comes back. So that was the 2 questions.
The township attorney question referring to until his successor, his would refer to an individual.
That I don't have an answer for right now in front of me. Though, we could ask counsel to answer that, perhaps maybe this evening. Mr. Iaciofano, are you prepared to answer that, or? No. He's not.
Okay. Question to the council, and I'm not sure if you know, I filed an OPA request for some emails, which actually I'm sure you know about that.
If I interrupt you real quick, and I apologize, if it has anything related to the litigation, we can't.
Oh, that's fine. It's curious, the special counsel, which was retained by the township to answer my OPA request, was a firm called Mills and Mills. Now, Mills and Mills was a recipient on these emails. Just kind of curious how that may not be a conflict of interest. I've sent an email to Councilman Jackson, wondering if that issue is still out there.
Nope, it's resolved.
Great, thank you. And do you know if...
Mr. Jackson?
Yep.
And for the former mayor, has anyone reached out to him?
Which one?
The former legal mayor, Mr. Salberg.
I have not. I don't know if Mr. Salberg received any email from you.
I don't think he has a township email anymore. So, but if whoever's in charge of that could reach out to him, and it's probably an oversight. So,
Council President, is there a request for something? Yeah, I mean, can you provide like a direction of what you're trying to say?
Oh, for those that don't know, under New Jersey ethics laws 48.9 to 22.6, all local government officers, just a pretty broad term, have to file a financial disclosure statement on or before April 30th of each year. And for those who take office after that, they have 30 days to file from the date of filing. That's normally handled by the Office of the Municipal Clerk. I know there was turnover in that office twice last year. I went and I looked. I was actually looking for Councilman Jackson's FDS form. I didn't see it on the roster. I also noticed Mr. Salberg's wasn't on there either. And I figured it was probably an oversight.
And I'm sure that it is, but being that you're mentioning it now, Mr. Salberg, I believe, is in the audience. He's right there in the back. And I'm sure he has it right now, but we could have a member of our administration or our clerk's office reach out to Mr. Salberg, our past mayor, and see if we can get that squared away. But if you could just give it a little bit of time so they can address that, and there's not a...
Yeah, I'm not looking to go violent on anything. And then two other things. Emails. Last meeting, which you guys just talked about, January 1st, there were some emails that were sent out regarding that. Is there a reason why every single council member is copied on an email and council people are replying and having a discussion to other council people when you're all copied on it outside of a public meeting? Because that's what a meeting is.
I think that was addressed to Mayor Puzio.
And I would ask that maybe the township develop some rules or regulations governing usage of emails to prevent any future violations of the Open Public Meetings Act. And also, my last question, do you know why the minutes from 12/11 were not approved in regards to the closed session minutes?
John Iaciofano on the distribution.
Because of the conflict of members that were in there. There was a conflict of interest of some members that had to recuse themselves. And I believe, maybe Mr. Iaciofano, you can assist with this, trying to morph the minutes together so that they could be reviewed by all, even those who were conflicted out of certain portions of those closed sessions. Maybe you could be better to address Mr. Smith's question.
No one mentioned to me before tonight that there was an issue with generating those minutes that you have to get the clerk about. So,
their emails. Yeah, I believe the clerk's office emailed the township attorney with seeking advice and had not yet received a response to that. I don't have the date of that email.
I'll be happy to look.
Yeah, perhaps the clerk can re-forward that. Potentially attorney-client privilege under OPRA would be shielded of that, but we could find that out and either answer that question at the next council meeting.
Or Jedynak often asks, when was the email sent?
Council President, perhaps the clerk's office could simply re-forward that email to the attorney.
Thank you very much.
And your one question, Mr. Puzio, or Mayor Puzio, now that you're here, Mr. Schmidt had questioned about appointments of the holdover department heads that you have since we've had change of mayors. Those positions are the term of the mayor. And he was asking what your ambitions were or what your direction was going to be.
We'll review. We'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. I wish you success.
I'm sorry. Council Vice President?
I'd just like to address one issue, Mr. Smith.
Can you speak a little louder?
I would just like to bring up one issue Mr. Smith brought up, if I may.
Go ahead.
It was when he brought up just now the answering and the copying of all emails to the council members, that was a concern of Council President Jedynak's last year sometime. And if my memory serves me correctly, I do believe Council, he could maybe verify that, Councilman Jedynak. I do believe that Council Jedynak reached out to Mr. Iaciofano for guidance on how to deal with that. Am I correct, Council Jedynak?
Yes, in the spring of last year, I brought that issue to the attention of the township attorney, and the council didn't receive any relevant advice advising against the practice. And so that practice has unfortunately persisted by some members of the council. Others of us refrain from that practice.
Okay, I just want to make sure we did address that. That was not something that was not addressed, but we didn't get the answer to that question.
We attempted to address it and didn't receive any meaningful advice regarding that practice. And unfortunately, that practice has continued among some.
Meaningful by whose
And the council people who had a concern with that practice, was that just the vice president and president?
No, I mean, like I mentioned before, I had sent an email to our administrator. I also sent an email to our mayor, because I was concerned under 10.4.8b, the definition of a meeting, it could also be through electronic communication. And because of the communication that was going back and forth.
I guess I'm going to ask this question. Is this something that the council would be willing to discuss tonight and put a policy in place to prevent this from happening? I know it. I don't want to put anyone under a gun. Obviously, we know that there's litigation out there. Would like not to amend that complaint. Is this something that the council views seriously, that's willing not to do this again and put something in place tonight so that the complaint wouldn't have to be amended?
Council President, in view of Mr. Schmidt's statement just now, referring to the possibility of amending a pending complaint, I'd recommend to the council be no further discussion on the subject. If the council wants a memo on what does and does not constitute a meeting and what actions, I seem to recall a memo that was sent at one point in time, but in any event, if the council wants a memo, we'll be happy to provide it. On the other hand, I would recommend to the council there be no further discussion about it.
With the advice of counsel and regarding to the pending litigation, and I'm sure that you're aware and you understand that, I think moving forward we can look at this. There has been some memos that have been submitted to our mayor and our administration. I believe our town attorney has probably reviewed those memos as well of concern, especially of the meeting definition. And moving forward, if we could have a little bit of ample time to review that and see and move forward.
And can I suggest that you take a look at I believe it was the Burlington County Prosecutor. It's a letter to Evesham Township's governing body. I want to say it was from maybe about 2012, 2013. I might have some guidance.
What was
it was written from the Burlington County Prosecutor. I believe it was written by the first assistant prosecutor, Thaddeus Drummond, to the Township of Evesham. And as a result of that, where I believe they did find a violation of the OTMA, Evesham Township, their then deputy mayor, who's now an assemblyman, they did create a email policy for council. And that might provide some guidance on the issue.
But again, please understand and recognize.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Next on the list is Mrs. Hollenbeck.
Good evening, Mary Hollenbeck, 31 Notch Road in Green Pond. My inquiry stems from the Bulbyville Sewer Project. I've come by the information that the Valley View Sewer Project and the Richard Mine Road Sewer Project and Bulbyville were all done at the same time. Yet for some reason, Bulbyville was never built. Now, in view of my former employer's passing recently, I ran into several people at the service, including Sam Yarish, who was council president at the time, and he explained to me who was present and that there was a resolution and an ordinance. And he was somewhat mystified that this bill never went out. I am too. All right, I live in the north part of town. I will never see sewers. I never believed that these should be capped at $16,000. However, they are by resolution and ordinance. I want to know what is going to be done or what's been done to see that the taxpayers of this town are reimbursed for what they've paid.
Are you done?
Mm-hmm. For now.
With regard to the Bulbyville, it was something that was brought up in the later part of the summer, addressing it from just going through and reviewing some of the budget area and some money that was being set aside out of the capital budget, and noticing some payments that were there. It was questioned on that. I believe you're talking about Ordinance 95-3, 95-11.
Correct.
I think there was also 0426 that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through some invoices with our town attorney, current town attorney, back in July of 2016, where he was still reviewing the Bulbyville issue. I've spoken to Dover. I've also spoken to our tax assessor.
Mm-hmm.
We've also requested a report from our administrator in 2018, which we still haven't received. And we are kind of in the dark in regards to what's going on. We do know that there has been one property that was collected, which was the Armory.
The Armory for $230-something thousand.
$288,000 to be exact. with the total amount of $1 million that was there. It was a little bit under from what it was originally at 1.375. We also had a meeting with our Finance Committee not too long ago in 2018, which has been a common topic at every meeting with that. I went and attended one, I read the minutes of the others, and they haven't received any information either. I do know that our CFO has been diligently working, trying to get information with that. I know that our auditor, Mr. Serenelli, has been on it as well. I believe it's also now in the hands of Mr. Sheard, our director.
Well, I'm a little bit confused, because this would really have nothing to do with Bobby Sheard. This would have more to do with, say, for example, when the budget came out, the funds that would be anticipated revenue to Rockaway Township based upon this sewer assessment didn't appear for 20-plus years. I've never heard or seen anything like that.
I don't have an answer for that. I know that the other trunk lines that might have been
Valley View, Richard.
Sewer 11, Sewer 14, they're identified by numbers that are there. Again, these people did it. I was part of the Richard Mine assessment when I purchased into the condos over there. And I paid even after that these were installed, much before I had even invested into that. But I knew of what I was getting into.
Well, Mr. Kelley, I have to ask this question. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. Okay, we have an outstanding sewer assessment. We have a certain amount of properties that owes the money to the Township of Rockaway. The Township of Rockaway is paying the interest. When and if our special assessment is going to get placed on these lands?
Well, I don't have an answer for that. Again, this happening from '93, prior to me being here.
Well, I didn't know about it recently either, or I would have been certain to have been here.
And I'm sure that you would have, because in the northern end of town, which many people don't know, from Meriden Road going up to Green Pond, right, we don't have any kind of accommodations to anything, whether it be gas, sewer, or water. But here we are, myself, as well as you and other members that live in those areas that rely on septic and well. We're paying for a sewer that we can't benefit from unless we're invited over to that house for a party for a barbecue. And then we can use it that way. But other than that, we don't get any benefit whatsoever. However, those homes that are on there, which I believe are 73 homes, it started off at 67.
I think it was 78, but whatever.
It started off at 67, and because of subdivisions during this period of time, there were other properties that were added that would be connected to those sewers. And then recently you found out, maybe Mrs. Seeger could assist me with this, there are still people that are connected that aren't paying a fee. Is that accurate? There was a report from our prior tax collector that was assisting on this.
I did not see that.
I know one of them being 95 Garrison was one.
That I recall, the report is still being worked on. We were just discussing that. We will have it within 30 days.
What I understand is, you have a report, you've been asked about it for a very long period of time.
We are working on the final draft. They have part of it. It will be available in probably about 30 days for the council, and it will probably be in an executive session.
For that assessment?
To discuss Boveyville.
To discuss Boveyville.
Yeah.
So we've had an ordinance since 1993. We had 25 years go by. Mrs. Palmieri, how much left do we have on that note to pay?
About another year and a half to go. I don't know.
So we've been paying on it for 23 and a half years. All the taxpayers, most of them don't benefit that other than those homes. And we don't even have an idea of what's going on, but yet we've inquired about this for a long period of time.
Correct, but we have a lot of research to do for 20, you only asked me last year, it's 25 years, and Mr. Inglesino billed us for looking into that sewer system too. We're waiting for his paperwork to be passed over to us, and he has not.
I believe Mr. Inglesino,
He was on the council and might have been the mayor.
I think he came in '94 after that was done, 94,
Actually,
95.
at the time, it was Sam Yarish was the council president.
Lombardi?
Yes, he was.
Lombardi was the mayor, right? Yeah, so that's incorrect.
And John Dorsey
He was in
the
there in
county attorney.
95. I don't know the
And I
exact
understand
years.
that. And in all fairness, Mr. Iaciofano's had it in 2016.
I can't answer that.
I can because I have the invoice to validate it. So, I mean, we have our own current town attorney that's had it for 2 years, and we're talking about $1 million.
Correct?
It's a lot of money.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're taking it seriously. We're trying to get to the bottom of it.
And what is the main concern? To address it, what is the main concern that we're looking into to make this report that you requested, that you offered to provide to the council that we haven't received yet in over 3 months? What is the main concern?
The main concern is to get it right, and that we look back at 25 years of history and try to get as much information as we can.
What is it that's
to present.
delinquent as far as information?
Excuse me?
What is delinquent of information to assist you moving forward?
I'm not ready to address that at this time.
So in 25 years, we don't know?
I wasn't here 25 years ago.
Okay.
I'm not ready to discuss
And we've had
it.
other sewer lines that have been assessed that should be no different than this. It's a common boilerplate, you would think, other than maybe the subdivisions that came in 04 to now.
From what I understand, it's very legally complex. That seems to be, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to start giving that statutes, but there's a lot of legal legwork that needs to be done on this from what I see.
We're trying to find out why it wasn't assessed back 25 years ago.
Why don't we move forward and get it assessed? And rather than find out why don't we just do what we need to do how fair is it for people in White Meadow Lake that had to install a septic system to get a CO, then have sewer installed within a 6-month period, have to condemn the new septic they put in and spend 20 to 25 grand to be compelled to actually connect to sewer, and then pay the assessment fee, which they're still paying on. And then we have this portion of the area at Bobbyville off of Route 15 or Clinton Street, off of North Street, Garrison, we have Berkshire, we have Hillside. And there's a lot of these properties there, and I don't understand why it's so different than the other areas that we've had sewers.
Well,
Doesn't make any sense.
When we do the report, we'll find out.
Excuse me, Mr. Council
I'm sorry.
President. Primarily, one of my questions here would be, I'd like to know how this went so many years without this anticipated revenue number, which should have been in every single budget from that day forward. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. We have auditors. I don't know how this type of an error ever took place. I would hope that I could get an answer on that at some point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hollenbeck is the last to sign on the sheet. I don't know if anybody had come in late that missed the sign on the sheet that wishes to come to the microphone. If anybody has an opportunity, Mrs. Gregg. You can state your name and address, Ms. Gregg.
Stacy Gregg, 40 Sunrise Road, Wharton, New Jersey. Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for showing up. There's quite a few of us. I have 85 people watching live stream. I'd like to revisit the microphones. This is getting ridiculous. It's been over 3 months that we've been talking about them. It didn't need to be the same type of microphones. I think you should be sick of hearing me ask about them. It's very hard to hear Mr. Tucker when he speaks. It's very hard to hear some of the other people on the microphones when they speak. You've been putting the piece of paper in front of your microphone for most of the night. Sometimes it's hard to hear the mayor speak. I'm not taking sides. I'm nonpartisan in this.
We are trying now to fix that.
I know, but I also know we're trying about the sewers. I don't have sewers on my street, and I sure as heck would like sewers on my street, okay? I wanted to discuss things for over a year, in 2008, not just on the sidebar. I want to come to my council meeting and I want to discuss them, and there hasn't been an opportunity regarding my sewers, regarding my mailing address. We just had I was lied to by the post office years ago saying, oh, we can't possibly deliver anymore. What's the mailing address on all the new construction that went up off of Green Pond at the end of Sanders when you make a left? Did they get Rockaway Township mailing addresses? I bet they did. I didn't. So I'm still asking about that. I never got a report. I had I think you told me you pulled papers at the beginning of last year when I brought it up, Mr. Tucker, so I'd like to revisit where that happened.
I have them here for you, Mrs. Gregg.
Okay, let me finish then. Didn't act on it all year. It was kind of waved at me in a parking lot, like as if a bargaining chip.
I handed it to you over here in the lobby and you refused to take it, but I have it here for you. I did save it in case you brought it up. With the individual from the postmaster down there, you can also contact Mr. Fisher at the annex that's down below. There's another individual that's there, and there's also an article about it with Butler and Kinnelon to assist you with that. So I did take it seriously. and it's there for your take.
Okay, I'm coming as a citizen, and I don't think I need to take it on as a committee person and doing it all effort myself. This is something for the town. It affects quite a few citizens. Mr. Tucker, I'd also like to talk about the last meeting. Before about the, right now I'm up to almost 100 people watching live stream. Well, we need to have this live stream. People want to know what's going on in their town. There's people who can't get out because they have children. There's people who work nights. They want to watch it from at home. I don't want to come in here. I have kids to run around. I'd rather watch it from a screen at home, like the 21st century. So I'm going to put that out. Okay? Did that satisfy you? I'm just talking. I'm frustrated also. I stayed here till like 1 o'clock. This has been nothing but disrespect for over a year, and I agree with Mr. Schmidt. Yeah, it'd be nice, and it's wonderful to think that over 60 days that they might give you a chance, but you know what? You had a turnover. It wasn't done properly. We were here on the 1st. The 3 people that were here are the same 3 people that have really gone a lot, the 3 of you together have conspired and worked together. The other 2 have been silent, like in the back seat, like Mrs. Mama Bear would talk about being in the back seat. So they really are inconsequential. It's been the 3 of you. And I sincerely hope, as citizens of Rockaway Township who care about your properties, you own a lot of properties, Mr. Tucker, I'm going to ask, because of what happened with the clerk this year, the misunderstandings over and over and over again, trying to get a recall done, that the 3 of you seriously listen and discuss with the other people on the council. There's got to be 3 Republicans that could take your place. I really urge you to step down and not waste another 60 days. You were in that seat less than, 15 minutes, and you were already trying to poke somebody with the way that you question. I really am not having high hopes for what's going on. We heard a lot of ridiculousness tonight going back and forth and going backwards. We have those taxes to collect. We have the OPMA to get in order. We have it was a ridiculous amount of time going over the meeting that was supposed to be on the 1st or the first Tuesday. You've lost the confidence of the town. It can't get any worse unless we have 2 mayors that end up dead next year. It can't get any worse than it's been. It's, God forbid. God forbid. But that's how bad it got in my town. When I talk to other people from other towns, they're like, oh, you're that town? So it's shame. Shame on us. Shame on us as citizens. We tried doing the recall. The clerk wasn't helpful in any manner. We got totally bad information over and over again. And I'm going to ask you before next month to reconsider again and resign, the 3 of you who showed up on the 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gregg.
One of the issues raised by Mrs. Gregg had to do with live streaming of the meetings. That has been an ongoing request of the council since last year. We were told at one of the 2018 meetings by Mrs. Seeger that a purchase order had been issued with regard to that. Perhaps this would be an opportunity to ask for a status on that purchase order.
Mrs. Seeger, as you heard, Mr. President, sorry, Mr. Jedynak request that. Can you give Mrs. Gregg a status as well as the council?
Yes, the equipment was ordered. There was the company. We're just waiting for them to give us a day to install it. They're the company we ordered it from that has this system is what the delay is, getting them in here. Mr. Coward is in charge of that, and he told me, I just asked for the status because I wanted the new mics for the beginning of the year, and he said he's the company we have to get in here and install. That's where it is. It is ordered.
Was that the new microphones, the live streaming, or both?
Both.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mrs. Gregg, did you still want this information? I can't hear you.
No, thank you.
Okay. Nobody else wishes to be heard? Okay, this portion of the public is closed to the public. We have an ordinances to introduce. It's ordinance O-19-1, ordinance authorizing the conveyance of perpetual deed of easement to accommodate the provision of electrical services by JCP&L to real property designated as block 11301, on the Lot 1, Block 11301, on the official tax map of the Township of Rockaway, which is more commonly known as the McVeigh property, 65 Mount Hope Road. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Jackson making the motion, second by Mr. Quinn. Any discussion? Hearing nobody? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? Yes. President Kelley?
Yes. I have 9 yeses, 0 nos. Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. And we have consent agenda is A through R.
Council President, typically we read the resolution numbers. or
All the way
sequence.
down, not the actual statements on.
Usually like RI 19-1 through 19.
And I'll go through that, so everybody just bear with me. On the consent agenda, it would be A would be R 19-01, B would be R 19-02, C would be R 19-03, D is R 19-04, E is R-1905, F is R 1906, G is R 1907, H would be R 1908, I would be R 1909, J would be R 19-11, K would be R 19-12, and we have L would be R 19-13, M would be R 19-14, N would be R 19-15, O would be R 19-16, bless you, bless you. P would be R 19-17, Q would be R 19-18, and last would be R 19-19. Do I have a motion?
Council President?
Yes.
I'd like to remove item D, R 1904 for further discussion.
Okay.
Council President, I'd also like to remove item B for further discussion.
That would be R 19-02?
Yes.
Okay. Can we make a motion to just remove them? So we're going to remove them for further discussion. B, R 19-02, requested by Councilman Sackett, and requested by Councilman Jedynak is D, R 1904. From the rest, from A to R, minus B and D. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Second.
Mrs. Smith? Okay. Second by Councilman Quinn. Clerk, can you please do the roll?
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? Yes. President Kelley?
Yes. We have 9 yeses, 0 nos, motion carries. We want to have discussion on B first, and R 19-02. Mr. Sackett?
Yes, Council President, thank you. Just looking over the dates for the meetings, and then going back to our lovely code 2-5.2. We have our next meeting scheduled for Wednesday. Not sure why, there's no holiday. The meeting's supposed to be Tuesday. Also looking at the meeting in February, one on a Thursday, February 21st. Not sure why it's not on February 19th. I see the budget meetings in March. I understand those are Thursdays. Then also looking at, we go to October, the one scheduled for the 24th. I'm not sure why that's not for the 22nd. And I just want to know why these are not following the code. We keep talking about the code and it's not being followed. It seems the meetings are being put whenever. So really want to know why they're not on Tuesdays, and I'd like them to be changed to Tuesdays.
I believe Councilman Jedynak, who prepared the agenda prior to stepping down, but some of the meeting dates, there's a time frame that certain things have to be placed, working from the budget for the introduction and working its way back, having time to bring in to introduce it, the time to notice it, and then actually have the introduction of that. So because of that time frame, it creates some difficulties to do that, and having it on a particular day that may not fall on that Tuesday. Also, with budget hearings, we have budget hearings that take place in February, March, and in April that we can't fit in with the second and fourth Tuesday, because we have our council meetings that are regularly scheduled in addition to that. And we did work with the Board of Adjustment to try to work with switching some of those days that are conflicting to still have it on a Tuesday. But because some of the importance of some of the applications before the Board of Adjustment, it was difficult to do that. Administration was not willing to adjust those days either, but Mr. Bell was willing to adjust those days and provided that in an email. And I had a conversation. I'll have your time, Mrs. Seeger.
February 5th, he's not. They have an important...
No, I know that. That's what the win is. I understand that.
And it's still on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was also potentiality of moving one meeting into another room rather than having in the council chambers, but there was a discussion with Mr. Bell with regard to that. And then I believe there were some holiday that might have been in October.
That was the 8th, and that was moved to the 10th, which is fine. I'm just not sure why the one's on the 24th and not the 22nd. I'm still wondering why there's one Wednesday, January 16th.
Yeah.
It should be the 22nd. If not, then why can't it just be Tuesday the 15th?
Council President.
And then I'm going to give the rest to Councilman Jedynak for that. Thank you.
So with regard to the dates that are there are statutory dates by which the administration is required to provide the council with a prepared budget for review. Our code says January 15th, state statute says January 15th. Every year, the state issues a local finance notice in December that pushes those dates out. I believe that the date, because I don't have it in front of me, is late February this year. That's the statute, that's the effective date that the administration is required by the state to provide this governing body with the budget to begin reviewing. The governing body then, by the same local finance notice, has about 30 days from that date to introduce the budget, and then another date after that to adopt the budget. One of the most important things that this governing body does is to set a budget. So those are the first dates that we looked at with regard to the meeting schedule that of the second and fourth Tuesdays. Last year, with regard to the budget, we had 5 meetings scheduled for the budget. We scheduled those out a month in advance. We were hit with bad weather. 2 of those meetings were canceled due to inclement weather. We had the last 3, and those 3 weren't enough. So there are, I believe, at least 5 meetings on here for the budget to allow enough time so that if there are cancellations, we still have them. One of the meetings last year was on a Saturday. We have had complaints since then about having meetings on Saturday with regard to the Sabbath. So all the meetings selected are selected on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday based on the availability of the room. And there's also with regard to spacing between meetings, you need about a 2-week period so that if you have an ordinance that you're going to introduce, that you're able to notice it and then have it noticed properly so that you can then take action at a following meeting. So that adjusted some of the dates. And then in November, the League of Municipalities is taking place, which is an opportunity for trainings to take place for elected officials if they choose to attend. And typically the meetings have fallen in that same week, so that was adjusted. The code does give us the flexibility to adjust the dates by resolution. I'm quoting it, and it says, For such day when the council determines it would be inappropriate to hold the meeting, the council by resolution shall set the time and place of the regularly scheduled meeting. Looking at the Open Public Meetings Act, it requires us to set at least once each year, within 7 days following the annual reorg, a schedule of the regular meetings, not later than January 10th, for the succeeding year, noting the location, to the extent known, the time and date of the meeting, and in the event that the schedule is later revised, the public body has 7 days following any revision to post and submit it in accordance with the rest of the OPMA. So our code, unlike the reorg meeting, actually provides flexibility to the council to set that schedule by resolution, and that's what this resolution does. It takes in all of those constraints and sets by resolution the meeting schedule.
Can I make a comment?
Were you first, Manny, or was Mr. Palumbo?
Yeah, Manny, go ahead.
Okay, now, Exhibit A states that these are all regular meetings.
I'm sorry?
Exhibit A says they're all regular meetings. Everyone that's listed.
Yeah.
Okay, now, shouldn't it be listed as a budget meeting separately and considered a special meeting?
No.
Just the budget?
Council President, would you like me to answer?
Yeah.
Okay. So the answer is no. It allows the governing body the maximum flexibility to conduct business. If you look at some of the dates and listed the way they are, it's not necessarily easy to look at it on that exhibit. But if you put them on a calendar where you can see the month at a time and you look at how they fall, you'll see that there are dates in there where a regular meeting needs to fall, because while we're reviewing the budget, and if you recall, it took a number of meetings last year, we still have to have regular meeting business that we have to conduct. And it gives the council the flexibility, learning from what we learned from this past year, bad weather, having to reschedule, right? And still having to conduct regular business that we get from the administration. This schedule gives us that flexibility to do that.
Is there a possibility, though, and maybe Mrs. Seeger or Mr. Iaciofano, if we feel that, like in the budget meetings, let's say we have those scheduled budget meetings, and we complete what we feel is sufficient amount, we could always cancel a budget meeting. We canceled it because of the weather last time with the 5, we only had the 3. There's always that possibility of doing that. It's no different than calling for a special meeting, only discussing a special topic. We can't add to anything. Or we could do it by way of resolution if you have the reorg and schedule it in advance. So, I mean, what would be the difference if we called for a special meeting of a day that's not on a Tuesday versus putting it in a resolution and scheduling it now? Well, now you know in advance rather than last minute 5 days prior to having the meeting.
It avoids...
But this doesn't show the public that those specific dates are specifically for budget discussion.
They don't have to.
I mean, is it something that, I mean, if you wanted...
Council, may I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so, Council President, it intentionally gives the council the flexibility and avoids the notice issues that have historically occurred over the past 6 years that we're aware of. This sets the schedule in advance. Now remember, there are requirements with regard to special meetings, not just with regard to notice, but what business can be conducted. This gives us this gives the council the flexibility to conduct whatever business it needs to on those dates, knowing that the month of March is going to be very busy because of budget.
So, Mr. Freelander, in hindsight, would it be, if we have it on a certain day here in the resolution, and you don't like that it's on this resolution, but yet we call for a special meeting of the same dates, is that going to be sufficient for you?
Well, I think people should know that those specific dates are designated for budget. We could discuss anything else at a budget meeting.
Yeah, but issues arise. There's other business that has to get conducted.
Why limit yourself?
Yeah, and by the way, this room also needs to be scheduled. There's other boards that might want to use these dates. If you don't have the schedule adopted tonight, they don't know when we're meeting until you decide, okay, now we're going to have that meeting on that date. If you don't decide that for a month or so.
So did you want, I mean, is there anything that would restrict this council to put budget meetings for those dates that would be for budget meetings?
I think the public should know. I mean,
well, I mean,
look at the list. They assume that it's business as usual every one of these days, like we argued. The primary reason for those dates is to discuss the budget.
We had that previously in November, and I think there was only 6 people in attendance.
But
So,
the agenda
As far as
state
what?
that.
Attendance. Yeah, we had budget hearings that Mrs. Seeger indicated that she noticed, and the lack of attendance.
But, you know, this is at night. This is not during the day. I mean, if you schedule big meetings at times that people can't come, of course you're not going to have this show.
Can I, Mrs. Smith? Yeah. And Mr. Palumbo, I'm sorry.
Would there be any harm in just putting on the dates? So the regular meeting would be the March 5th, should have been March 12th, there is March 12th and 26th. The others are scheduled to discuss basically the budget, basically. Right?
Well, there's also other business that can be discussed in addition to budget.
So would it hurt to put in parentheses budgets after those?
Yes, because you're restricting yourself.
There's only, I think it's only identified, right? Where we have a reorg meeting, we have a regular meeting, we have a special meeting and an emergency meeting.
Yes, to confirm.
Budget, correct?
To confirm Council President's question, we have at our disposal an organization meeting, regular meetings, and special meetings. Your question about is there potential harm? If you restrict the purpose of that meeting, the whole point was to give the council the flexibility to be able to conduct whatever business may arise at that time, given that we had issues this past year with closures due to snow. So you might find yourself as a council in a position where if you restrict yourself to this meeting being strictly budget, and then a regular meeting gets impacted by the weather, now you can't take action at that meeting because you've restricted yourself. This gives the council the flexibility to conduct whatever business it needs to on any of those dates.
Make it happen.
Can't you note that on those specific meetings, it's tentative that the budget will also be discussed? Not that it's limiting, but that's probably going to be discussed.
If you do a special meeting though, Mrs. Lucas, you would only be limited to what you could discuss.
Yeah, given the notice issues, I would say you're opening a can of worms. The idea is to give the council.
We're in open litigation. Here we are talking about notices and everything else that's on there.
Yeah,
The only addition is just identifying whether it's budget, regular meeting, special meeting, or emergency meeting. But there is no.
Is there something that precludes you from saying regular meeting? Star, probably budget.
Yes.
People could say,
Yes,
and
it creates exposure to liability that we don't need as a council.
And you know what?
Does
Just
Mr.
have your
Iaciofano
budget
think
meeting
that?
and talk less.
Can I interject just with one?
Sure, there.
If we're going to potentially be doing town business, I think it's best if we had, I mean, it's going to be earmarked possibly as, in the past, they've been earmarked as budget meetings. But now we're saying that, and I'm not trying to hamstring anything.
Doesn't mean that it's right though.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that it's right. I'm saying that we may have other town business going on, but we may not have our town attorney there. If we're going to be voting on things that may come up, I don't know what's going to come up.
Well, you know what, in defense of that, you're absolutely right. However, if you make your calendar in advance rather than a special meeting 5 days in advance, you know that now. Like tonight, you're going to know the dates that you need to attend.
But is the council going to put on that they're going to be addressing additional issues prior? So we know that we need our town attorney at that meeting?
Well, we don't know until the agenda comes up at that particular time. I can't foresee. I mean, I'd have winning lottery tickets if I could do that.
But what I'm saying is prior to that meeting taking place, we have a 5 or 7 scheduled meeting. Prior to that,
there's an agenda though. You're going to get an agenda.
That's what I'm asking. Is there going to be an agenda?
Always.
Or is there going to be things that may not be on the agenda? They may not. There may be nothing on the agenda. We take a look at it and go, okay, we don't need to spend the money on having the town attorney. No offense. I like you, but what do you call it? I don't want to spend extra money.
Well, we didn't have the town attorney in some of our budget meetings last.
Can I answer?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They were budget meetings. They were exclusively for the budget. But if we're going to present things...
well, you know, Mr. Freelander, don't you? I mean, right now, we're telling you what dates that are the budget end of it.
But we may present something at a budget meeting. The council may come up with something, I don't know, an ordinance or something that may come up. And we may not have our town attorney there. We may not have particular department heads.
Well, you would see an agenda before in advance of the meeting commencing.
Well, but that's not always the case. There have been things that have been introduced. I've gotten things when I was on council, things that came up last minute, that's where I was asked.
How's it any different, whether it's noticed as a budget or a special or?
Because if it's a budget, it's exclusively going to deal with budget issues, no other additional items, no ordinances, no resolutions, nothing else but the budget. That's what I'm saying.
But if there's something that's necessary in order to move forward with the budget.
Oh, if it's something necessary to move forward.
We don't know that now, though. Why would we want to limit ourselves?
I'm not saying it's not budget related. I'm saying that if there's something that comes up, we're talking about town business in general. Maybe if there's something, an issue comes up with a legal issue, with a roadway, a leak somewhere that this council wants to deal with.
We can address it at that meeting.
We can address it at that meeting, but what if we don't know it and and the town attorney's not going to be there?
Well, maybe there could be a substitution of the town attorney. I mean, I don't know how to fix that for you.
Well, the way to fix it is, I think it should be earmarked as a budget meeting. That's all.
You're limiting it. I believe that's an attempt to limit what we can deal with. I don't know if that's.
Okay.
Council President.
It is.
Yes.
It is an attempt to limit it.
Yeah.
Make sure that we have all the right mechanisms in place.
Well, you'll know the calendar dates to schedule accordingly with that. Mr. Blum?
I'm not a weather forecaster, but I just know last March, when this threw a wrench into everything.
Yeah.
It was an extremely snowy March. I mean, we had
Unusual.
Very unusual, 4 nor'easters, and we're going to compensate for something that may not happen again this year.
And we can cancel.
Happened to the summer schedule, we can sleep in.
Yeah. Well, we can always cancel a meeting though, rather than have.
Let me ask just a question. Why is October 10th and 24th scheduled on Thursdays? Can I ask you specifically about those? Is it?
Yeah, but he never, I asked them, they never answered.
One of the October meetings.
I don't know.
Excuse me.
Is that?
One of the October meetings is Yom Kippur, Mr.
Okay.
Sackett.
All right.
Right,
So
but
that's why.
the other impacts
Fair enough. All right.
But we've had some challenges where before they've had meetings that took place, and in 2018, there was a lot of questions on some of those things where we consulted with you, we've consulted with the rabbis now, so, to be cautionary and be proactive on it so we don't have those issues, overlaps of holidays, and the requirements for the introduction of the budget and moving ourselves backwards to be compliant with these extensions under the local finance orders that we received. Again, this is a safeguard, it doesn't limit us. If it's something that we finish our work, not in the 5 council meetings for the budget, in addition to the regular portion of that meeting, we can't cancel them.
So just wondering why this couple of meetings were scheduled.
Yeah.
Not, this January 16th, February 21st.
You can't have them on dates where it was conflicting with the Board of Adjustment. The planning board is Monday.
The 5th, yeah. So the 16th is specifically because of the zoning board. Discussions that took place between myself and the zoning board of adjustment. I'm happy to answer the question if you'd like an answer, Mr. Sackett.
Are any of these other dates?
I'm trying to answer the question. January 16th is specifically because there's business of the zoning board that needed to take place and communication that took place between myself and the attorney for the zoning board, Mr. Bell, to not impact their ability to meet because they've had an issue with meeting, and this was already scheduled by them before. Yes, so that's why we moved that. Look, so the other issue is having enough space between meetings. You can have a meeting this week and you have a meeting next week, right? It's a little too tight to have meetings back to back. Plus, if you have an ordinance like we do today, you have notice requirements to be able to have the adoption. So you want about a 2-week gap.
Exactly, so 22nd will do it, today's the 2nd.
Yeah, because we didn't have the meeting that's scheduled on the 1st, then
I'm on the clock.
would have been.
Microphone, buddy.
Let's move it to the 22nd.
Yes.
Council President, you can modify any one of these dates that you want. If you do that, I hope that everyone here has every one of their religious holidays out to make sure that we don't make an error that because it happens very easily. So we went through this with a fine-tooth comb. We still had errors. Those errors were pointed out. Those errors were corrected. you have a schedule that has enough of a time frame between meetings to be able to handle ordinances, to not have back-to-back meetings, to address your budget requirements in the month of March. That's what you have before you, but the council is welcome to always amend it and change it as they see fit.
You know, when you talk about special meetings, can someone on the council read what your administrative code says with respect to special meetings? 2-5.3, and all of this debate and discussion would have been ended about 20 minutes. I don't know, why isn't our attorney interjecting and helping the council?
Mr. Dio, we're not calling for special meetings. We're doing an annual notice for all the regular meetings throughout the year.
What's that?
We're doing a regular meeting notice for all the annual meetings for the year.
That I agree with.
That's all we're talking about. We're not talking about...
No, we're talking about having a special meeting. A special meeting is totally different than a regular meeting.
No. And the mayor recognized that, and Mr. Sackett, I believe, feels the same.
The vote should be on the regular meetings, not special meetings. Special meetings can only be had by written request in advance by a council member and then voted on by 2/3 of the council.
Yeah, we're not doing any special meetings right now.
So you got a regular meeting. It gives you flexibility. Do what you want. What's going to be discussed puts in the agenda.
And it is, but I have to limit open to the public. I know emotions get going and whatnot.
You're referencing 3 newspapers here, do you know that?
But moving forward,
I'd like to make a motion to move the January 16th meeting to January 22nd.
January 16th?
Yes. January 16th meeting to January 22nd.
Mr. Quinn wants to be noted.
I'm sorry, Mr. Quinn.
Yes, one thing I would recommend is that we put a cap on the time. If we start at 7:30, we should end at 11:30, the latest. Instead of 1.
I understand, Mr. Quinn, but if we have just 12 members of the public at 5 minutes plus, that's an hour that's added on to it, plus our other discussion on air. I wouldn't want to be time limited as what we have to do discussion-wise. I know the Board of Adjustments has it like I think 11 o'clock or 11:30, but if you're at your end, they let it go for a little bit longer just to finish of that, rather than kind of conduct it, because some things are time limited. I understand that? No.
After 11 o'clock, this council can't function. If you work, as most people do, you get tired, you're done. You get more productivity done by 11, and with the amount of meetings that are scheduled, if you can't handle it with that, I don't know how you're going to.
Right.
This is a real good example of why they can't handle it.
Does anybody second the motion for Mr.?
I'll second. That 22nd?
Yep.
22nd.
Mr. Sackett, could you tell me the reason why?
Meetings are supposed to be on Tuesdays, and that's why I want it on Tuesdays every
Just
2
because
weeks.
of that, even though
Just
you're
because of that.
adjusting the code?
Just because of that.
Really? No, you can modify it from Tuesdays to Thursdays. That's the reason why, sole reason.
Council President,
Yes. Vice President.
which date are you modifying? January 16th?
Councilman Sackett wishes to move the 16th of January to the 22nd of January?
Yes.
Plus it gives us an extra week to get some more information.
Do we know if there's a meeting that's being held on that Tuesday?
The second and the fourth Tuesday are saved for the council.
I'm sorry?
That is a regular, that was according to code. 22nd, regular scheduled meeting.
What's our holiday? I'm not looking at holidays.
I checked the holidays.
Yeah, I'm not messing around with holidays.
Is there a holiday?
I have no idea. I'm not going to look for that.
Do you know if there's any holidays?
The day before is Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, so so with regards to agenda preparation, you have a 3-day week, right? And so if you have any questions, so with regard to that, the Monday before is a holiday when this building is closed. If you have any questions regarding the agenda, you better get them in before Friday, because you're going to be asking the day of. And that happens. It becomes very difficult. First of all, the clerk's office gets items from the administration so after, sometimes late, the agenda is given to the council with time to review it. The council needs to be able to ask questions, right? If you have a situation like this, which we've tried to avoid, and if you look at the agenda that was adopted, the scheduled meetings adopted for 2018, you'll see that there were some Thursdays in there. To avoid situations like where the building is closed on a Friday or Monday, reducing the amount of time that the council members have the ability to get answers from the administration or the clerk's office, and this happens to be one of them.
No, you know what? If everybody just listen, I think there's a possibility. Look, we're having 25 meetings for the annual notice that we have here. And Mr. Jedynak, I do understand what you have, but compromise one meeting out of the 25.
You talking to the mic?
To compromise one of the meetings out of the 25, you know, because you want it on a Tuesday, whatever the case may be, I think there should be some kind of consideration out of the 25 meetings. We can make that change where we would just have to make notice to be a little bit more proactive of getting information to the clerk. I'll recognize you, Mr. Mayor, and be efficient with that on that particular date. So just mark your calendar of that being somewhat of an asterisk to say, all right, listen, we only have a short period of time. I don't know, Mr. Jackson, you look like you might have something to say.
No, I'm waiting.
Okay. So I think for the consideration, that would be something acceptable that we could look and make that change. We'll do it by way of motion moving forward. But before we do that, Mr. Mayor?
The town attorney wanted to interject.
Mr. Iaciofano?
Thank you, Council President. One point of information and then one concern. Point of information is that even as we sit here today, none of us know when the local finance notice specifying the budget dates is going to be and what dates are going to be set. That might complicate the schedule. My greater concern is that other than scheduling the regular meeting for tonight, which this resolution does do, and I've had some dialogue with Mr. Jedynak about this, concerning a request to vacate 252, replace it with a resolution section, etc. You still, and what I'd like to do with your permission, and I'll be happy to cooperate scheduling-wise, I'd like to meet with the Ordinance Committee about the request that Mr. Jedynak made. I don't know if the whole council is familiar with them. Appropriate to reschedule that regular meeting. But under the literal reading of 252, the council doesn't have the ability to schedule 6 meetings a month, okay, and call them all regular meetings. Now, I'm giving you the literal interpretation of what our ordinance says and whether the council likes it or not, and I certainly don't mean that as an ultimatum. The council is obligated to follow what is currently the law. Now, my suggestion is I think the council needs to pass a resolution tonight affirming tonight as the reorganizational meeting. And I suggest to the council that they do not act on the balance of the resolution that's been proposed, but they instead impose a regular meeting schedule for the time being consistent with what the ordinance requires. And then we can move quickly, with Mr. Kelley's permission, to the Ordinance Committee, discuss proposed changes to perhaps achieve what the council wants to achieve or not, depending on the preference of the council, and go from there. But whether we like it or not, the council is bound by the current ordinance and what that ordinance says, and the literal meaning of that ordinance, which I consider to be the meaning that a court would most likely interpret the ordinance as saying.
I appreciate your advice, Mr. Iaciofano. However, I mean, we've gone through this before. There's never been an issue with this before. The council wanted to make a resolution to change one date in January out of the 25 that we have. We can always cancel the meeting if we've achieved beyond or there's a conflict afterwards. I mean, it almost seems like you're selective with the code that we have here.
Oh, come on.
And it just,
Please tell me how I'm being selective, Mr. Kelley.
well, I mean, it says the council shall meet annually for a reorg on the first Tuesday. That's not good for you.
Unless it's a holiday.
It doesn't say that. Not for the annual, not for the reorg. You guys can argue all you want.
You're 100%
You know, I'm not going to play semantics on how it reads.
It's a regular meeting.
You're 100% right.
So I'm not going to have it to where it's going to work for you, Mr. Iaciofano, and then you change it in a different context that contradicts it. So we can always cancel the meeting if we have too much. If you can't attend or you can't meet that day for the meetings that are scheduled right now, as of this resolution, and we're going to make a motion to change one of those dates, perhaps you can have somebody fill in. As Mr. Mayor Puzio, we were talking about, there'll be an agenda that's provided in advance so you know what's going on with those meetings. And I haven't seen anything different of scheduling it and calling it a budget meeting. However, you can make your own personal notes on this dais that it's a budget meeting and how to prepare for it and what to bring. And I think this conversation has gone through and echoed through maybe the audience, and we can address it at during those meetings. And we can put it on our website if you want to put an asterisk and say it, discussions of budget in addition to the regular meeting. That's administration can do that. So I'm going to...
Council President, can I just add one item?
Go ahead.
With regard, so we just heard the Township Attorney say that it was unknown when the local finance notice would be published by the state and how that might affect the schedule. Ms. Palmieri, when was the local finance notice published?
I haven't seen the local finance notice yet that establishes the dates with the revised dates.
It exists, and it's from at least November.
With the revised dates.
With the dates, yes.
Yeah.
Local finance notice, it's always at the end of the year for the year before. It was in November.
I usually see that notice sometime in February or January. I haven't seen it. In March, I saw a local finance notice that established setting the COLA. It was setting the health benefit increase, the cap, the budget cap increase, but I did not see anything with dates.
Okay. So you're familiar with the local finance notice that typically comes out annually. That sets the date for the transmission of the budget from the administration to the council. The second date is the introduction by the council of the budget, and the third is the adoption of the budget by the council.
That's correct. And then typically what happens is that the state will extend those dates 1 month, and that comes out in a second local finance
Right. And
notice.
so that local finance notice was issued in at least November of this past year, and the clerk's office can share that link with you to where that is. And it does set it, and it does set the dates out about more than a month. Yep.
Okay.
I thought that they were going to extend those dates, and they just haven't come out with the new one yet. I thought I read that.
Right, but it seems to me the administration is unaware of the one from November or
I've
earlier
seen-
that does exist.
No, we've seen that one, but we also know that the state said they were going to change the dates this year, and that one is not out yet. And we're waiting for that one. And I also got an email today from Ms. Ferrante, our engineer, that said the Board of Adjustment is scheduled to meet the first and third Tuesdays in 2019. They have, on February 5th, they have an application that's already scheduled, been advertised, and the business already paid for the recording of the advertisement. Is that correct? For the public notice. There is 3 or 4 meetings on here that the Board of Adjustment already is on the calendar for. And as far as I know, they have not voted to change any of those meetings. And I know the February 5th is already noticed. So that's another date on here that you have.
And how is the zoning board scheduling meetings without a quorum to meet?
They scheduled the meetings, they have to vote on them, but the February 5th has already been noticed, and it's already been advertised by the
And who
person.
scheduled that if they haven't had quorum to meet?
I didn't schedule that, the Board of Adjustment schedules that.
If they haven't had quorum to meet, how did they schedule that?
They scheduled it last year, I think. But they, in their code and their bylaws, meet the first and third.
Right. And
until they change their bylaws,
under-
they keep the first and
As
third.
Mr. Kelley noted, and there have been communications between this governing body and the attorney for the zoning board.
And have they
who
voted
sent
on
a-
it?
Who sent a memo stating, first of all, we have communications with the zoning board of adjustment attorney stating that when there are meetings that the governing body is holding in this room, that the room across the hall can be used for some meetings. He sent us a memo listing one critical meeting and stated that changing the remaining meetings for the year would not have any legal implications, and we have a memo from the attorney stating that. So this is only an issue for those who would like to make it an issue. But the zoning board also has not had, the zoning board has also not had quorum, so they have not yet established their meeting schedule. When they have quorum and they have a meeting, they can set their schedule, and they can also amend their bylaws if necessary. It's not written in code anywhere what their schedule is.
Are you still okay with the change?
We have, Council President, we have a motion before
No,
us.
I'm just talking to Mr. Sackett, and you're still confident with your motion? Okay, thank you. Do I have a second on Mr. Sackett?
You have, Council President, you have Councilmember Smith was the second.
I can't.
Let the other guy talk, you gotta let him talk.
Council President, Councilmember Smith seconded Councilmember Sackett's motion.
Can you do
This
the...
regards the legal advice that Mr. Iaciofano just gave you, and I think maybe I'm misinterpreting him, but I think maybe you're misinterpreting him, because it seems to me that what he was saying is that the code is very clear that when our dates of our meetings are to be, Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So you
Very
have-
set. And then he said that there were specific reasons why we could change them. One was if it was on a holiday, or if it was, I forget. Inappropriate.
Or such other day the council determines that it would be inappropriate to hold the meeting.
So, inappropriate. So is it inappropriate to, like, which of these meetings have been changed because it's inappropriate? Basically, what I'm saying is, and I think what he's trying to say is, you're opening yourself up to more legal issues. And Mr. Schmidt here has, you know.
Hey, I don't have an issue with this, okay? So if you're gonna say it has to be in there, you're gonna sue, we are fine.
I think you're just...
I don't see any reason why what Mr. Iaciofano suggested is pass something that meets the code as it is stated right now, and then go back and revisit it with everyone, because clearly some of the other council members have a couple of questions.
Well, I have a motion that's already been made from somebody. I have the code and how it reads.
But
And
you're interpreting it. We pay for a township attorney to give us legal advice. We know how that has turned out when it has been ignored in the
Because
past.
I do appreciate your comments, I hear your comments.
And again, you're going to ignore the town.
It's not a matter of that, I'm looking at the code.
Clearly a matter.
And there's a no-win situation. I mean, we're gonna follow what we have that's here, we're gonna do a roll call, and the council's gonna vote. It's just that simple.
No, it's not simple.
It is,
Once
Mrs.
you're going to
Newman.
follow the advice of the attorney, in my opinion.
Are we ready?
We're just voting to move the one meeting right now.
We are.
Okay, well, when you say voting to move the one meeting in conjunction with the rest of the meetings, in other words, we're voting to keep this schedule and just changing the 16th and the 22nd?
No, we're voting on...
I want to make sure that's
yeah,
clear.
We're voting on a motion that was made by Mr. Sackett.
Just to move one meeting.
To move one meeting on
We're not
25.
move the meeting and approve the rest of this along with it.
After if we have an amendment of the date that Mr. Sackett made a motion for, and it was seconded by Mrs. Smith. Once that is clean, we will then make a motion to then approve all of the dates that have just been modified.
Council President, I believe, I just wanted to note that the Open Public Meetings Act has a certain time frame within which this governing body must adopt a schedule of meetings. I believe it's the second page there. Just, you might want to make the council aware of that.
It says under 10:4-18, schedule of regular meetings of the public body revision procedure, at least once a year within 7 days following the reorg meeting of a public body, or if there is no such organization or reorganization meeting in the year, then by no later than January 10th of such year, every public body shall post and maintain posted throughout its year the place described in NJSA 10:4-8D1, mailed to the newspapers described in NJSA 10:4-8D2, submit to the persons described in NJSA 10:4-8D3 for the purpose of public inspection, to schedule the regular meeting of the public body and to be held during the succeeding year. Such schedule shall contain the location of each meeting, the intent of its known, and the time and date of each meeting. In the event that such schedule is therefore revised, the public body within 7 days following such revision shall post, mail, and submit such revisions in the manner described above. So we're also bound statutorily
Depends on which statute you want to listen to.
to creating these meeting dates.
One step at a time.
So the next meeting that we're going to have is going to be the 22nd, beyond. So if we don't schedule them, we'd be in violation of the statute. Because our next council meeting to do it is going to be on the 22nd by the motion that was made by Mr. Sackett, because we're not going to have it on the 16th.
So, but we can change this one meeting and then work out the rest of this, correct, tonight?
Well, he just made a motion just to move it. Councilmember Palumbo, I hope if there's a suggestion to go through each one of the dates tonight to change the entire schedule, I think it's going, well, I can just tell you, having gone through this process and having gone through it once and having it published, it's very easy to make dates with regard to where holidays fall. This meeting schedule has been gone over with a fine-tooth comb. It's clear what the Open Public Meetings Act requires. It's clear that the code allows the council to set the meeting schedule by resolution. If the only reason to create an issue with regard to the meeting schedule is to prevent the council from having adopted a regular meeting schedule to create a cloud over the council's ability to meet.
Okay, but you have somebody who brings open suits against the council in disagreement, in my opinion, with the attorney giving us advice.
Right, and the advice that we have from the attorney, Mr. Palumbo, if you recall, stated that there was no issue with not having the meeting on the 1st. There's plenty of flexibility in the code to not have the meeting on the 1st, despite a sentence that says that the council shall meet on the first Tuesday of January annually, yet finds no flexibility in a statement that says, or such other day when the council determines it would be inappropriate. If you were to believe the advice that we're getting from the township attorney, day is night and night is day.
Okay.
That's not what he said, though.
Not at all. Not what he said.
Stop
You can't put
spinning.
it into the trust committee.
Not DJ.
Council President, you have a
Mr.
motion.
Iaciofano, is there a legal issue with Mr. Sackett's moving this date to the 22nd from the 16th?
None that I can see.
Is there an issue if we don't approve, is there an issue if we don't approve these dates within 7 days from today?
First of all, tonight, let me break it down as I see it. Tonight, you have the obligation to pass a resolution acknowledging this meeting as the reorganizational meeting, okay? You have an obligation then to set a regular meeting schedule for the year, okay? And to publish, obviously, to publish that in accordance with the requirements of the statute, okay? The distinction that Councilman Jedynak makes pertaining to the reorganizational meeting and the January 1st date is contrary to the literal language of 252. It's clearly, first of all, we've been through this. I believe the council has a memo from me on it. But the reorganizational meeting is a regular meeting. 252 clearly states that if a regular meeting falls on a legal holiday or such other day when the council determines that it would be inappropriate to hold the meeting, the council by resolution shall set the time and place of the regular scheduled meeting. Incumbent in that language is that you're replacing a regular meeting with another regular meeting. Now, when you have language in the statute, as you do, that says the council shall meet regularly on the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month, my analysis, which anyone can quarrel with, is that a reasonable interpretation of that ordinance section is that it contemplates 2 regular meetings a month. Okay?
But I'm sorry to interrupt you. My question is specific to, I think Council President Kelley mentioned, or it might have been Councilman Jedynak, that within 7 days of this meeting, we have to agree to our schedule for the year.
Yes, sir.
Is that accurate?
I believe it is, yes.
So if we don't do it tonight and we don't meet to the 22nd, if we don't approve some schedule tonight and we don't meet to the 22nd, we're in violation.
Correct.
Okay.
Are you good?
I am.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Iaciofano, then in order to accomplish what we want to accomplish, first, step 1, reaffirm tonight, correct?
As the reorganization?
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Step 2 is to schedule regularly scheduled meetings for the year, tonight.
Yes,
Okay.
because you can't otherwise do it given either of the dates that are suggested.
Understood.
Yes.
And give us the mechanism, after A and B are done, the mechanism to schedule budget meetings.
Okay. Budget meetings may be scheduled as special meetings, okay? Published or noticed independently from the regular meeting schedule, okay? You reach a dichotomy. If you schedule a budget meeting, then, and if it's advertised as a budget meeting, then technically there should be limits to the meeting, okay, namely the budget, okay, or discussions on the budget, taking whatever testimony from staff and the administration you need to take, et cetera, the usual process. Now, we had presented to us in the discussion on the dais the issue of what you do if you get snowed out, okay? Well, I submit to you that the ordinance addresses that, okay? If you're snowed out, it's inappropriate to hold a meeting on that date like the ordinance says. So you simply, by resolution, schedule another meeting to make it up.
Okay, and my next question is, at our next regularly scheduled meeting, would we be able to schedule budget meetings in advance?
Yes.
And just a follow-up to my question, so tonight, we can't just say we're scheduling our meetings in accordance with the code. We have to put the specific dates down.
Yeah, but I submit that if you take a quick look at the second and fourth Tuesdays as we go forward, you can supply that information pretty quickly.
And then you could change it at a next meeting if you realize that we stumbled on a problem. You could change that at the next meeting and still be in compliance.
Yeah.
Subject to the action of the full council with
Council
proper
President
notice.
Kelley, you might want to appoint a special committee of the council to review the calendar, to go through the schedule. And I appreciate that. I don't think so. I think you can, just a second. I think that we can move forward. We have an understanding that we're time limited to set these things. If it does fall, I mean, right now, we're scheduling in advance so you can mark your calendars appropriately and accordingly. If you can't make it physically, but you can make it via phone, or you can't make it at all during those periods of time that these meetings are scheduled. Is there another meeting that you think that you'd want to address other than the 16th to the 22nd? I'm just trying to move forward, so I mean...
Well, I just want to take it one step at a time. First, do that, and then schedule the regular meeting schedule of second and fourth Tuesdays, and and then we have a religious holiday involved, so we move it to Thursday. So
I think what Councilman Palumbo is trying to say is he wants to pull all the budget meetings off till the next meeting.
Yeah, correct.
To talk.
What do you want to do?
that's what I had asked him, step by step. I asked council, if next meeting, then we can set the budget meetings as special meetings. And he said he'd be in compliance with everything I just asked him.
So what's different?
meetings in
If the dates fall on the same, we could always cancel meetings that have the extra meetings. That's why there were extra meetings that were scheduled in the event that we had snow or whatnot during that period of time. So if we achieved what we needed to within the 4 meetings that were scheduled out of the 5, we could still...
Okay, and I'm just telling you, last year was extraordinarily inclement weather for the month. I mean, that was ridiculous, right? I mean, who's seen a March with 4 nor'easters in it? I'm not a forecaster. I'm not going to say it is or ain't going to happen again.
Well, I was born in late April in a blizzard, and so I mean, anything can happen.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a
Council
question?
President, with regard to the scheduling, I think it's incumbent to also ask the clerk's office, what kind of lead time does the clerk's office need to schedule special meetings? If something were to happen, where a special meeting were canceled at the last minute because of weather we can't predict until it's upon us, and then we would need to schedule a special meeting, what's the minimum time frame we think we need?
7 regular meetings in the month of March. How do you have 7 regular meetings in the month of March? 7.
That's my question, Council President.
Well, it's 5 days.
7 regular meetings in the month of March.
It's going to be...
How's that possible?
The Daily Record requires at least 2 business days for publication, and the Star Ledger requires 3.
And practically, what has it been that we've seen? What's what's been some of the worst case scenarios we've seen with those papers?
When you take into account weekends and holidays, sometimes it's taken 5 or 6 days before publication.
So it is possible that if we have a circumstance where we call a special meeting, inclement weather occurs that prevents that meeting from taking place, if we want to then reschedule it, we could be looking at a worst case scenario, another 5 to 6 business days to schedule it, and we only have a 1-month period within which to address the budget, which is essentially the month of March. So, thank you, Council President.
So how can we move forward with this?
Can I ask a question?
No.
Sorry, Council President.
Oh, I'm sorry to do that.
Ms. Clipperton, did you prepare a schedule looking at the second and fourth Tuesday according to code and provide that with holidays to Mr. Jedynak?
I did work with Aaron Murray, and it was provided to Mr. Jedynak, and then changes were made.
Thank you.
Another question. The only conflict with religious holidays for second, or any holidays, but religious holidays, second and fourth is in October. Is that correct?
Councilmember Palumbo, I think if you were...
I'm just asking.
No, I don't...
Here's the question is...
Who's the question to?
The question is...
Councilmember Palumbo.
I'm just asking a question.
Were you asking it to me since I prepared it? Were you not?
I'm going to ask you...
He'll ask you if he answers.
Okay, the question is, the second and fourth Tuesdays, aside from October, are there any other conflicts with holidays, religious holidays, or anything otherwise?
Does Ms. Clipperton have that schedule?
I'm just asking. I know Jonathan said that we have a conflict in October. Okay, understood. So those will be Thursdays.
I can tell you, Councilmember Palumbo, that in order to do this, I used a spreadsheet to track all the holidays and things that are going on. It is not the only constraint for this council to do business. That is why the code is written such to give the council. But the council has the ability to set the dates. And we have a motion on the floor to change at least one of the dates. Perhaps we could take action on that motion before we move forward on the rest, Council President.
Oh, okay.
There's more than just that calendar, though, Vic. What days annoy you, Mr. Palumbo? I mean, seriously.
I guess what annoys me is we have competing interests out there, whether we're going to be in violation of OPMA, not in violation of OPMA, and we're trying to navigate through this without having to redo it and do everything over again and be arguing with each other. The the attorney for the town wants us to reaffirm tonight, set a regular scheduled meeting, and then at our next meeting, he said that Mr. Sackett's motion, that if we wait till the 22nd, that would be fine. Am I correct? Our next meeting, if we have, you want us to do a regular schedule for the year. If we wait and have our next meeting to the 22nd of January, there's no issue with going from the 7th to the 22nd. Am I correct?
For the full meeting schedule?
Well, no. You want that tonight for just having for our next meeting.
For special meetings?
Well, just that our next meeting is okay if it's switched to the 22nd. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's step one. We're getting there. But reaffirming tonight has to be done tonight. Setting a regular scheduled meeting for the year has to be done tonight.
Yes.
On the 22nd, we can schedule special meetings for the budget in March. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Thank you.
And you're limited to those meetings, though, Mr. Palumbo.
I understood.
Last word.
And Mr. Iaciofano, anything I said would put us in violation of OPMA?
Not to my knowledge.
He's got a degree, you two don't.
Go for it.
Come on,
So you're up first.
I can't hear you. He can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm talking to them, so I look over there. I apologize. If we set a schedule tonight for the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, for each month, can it be amended at a later date if we find that there's a problem?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mrs. Abraham.
If we amended, a meeting, then it then becomes a special meeting with new noticing, right?
What did she say?
Correct?
Yes.
I don't know what she said.
She said it becomes a special meeting with a new notice.
You can't just amend a meeting. It needs to be re-noticed and republished, and that's the time constraint. Correct? Is that correct?
No, what I'm suggesting is to set the meetings for the second and fourth Tuesday of every month as regular meetings tonight. And then in the future, or the near future, as soon as we can double check everything out, if there's a problem with a holiday or a religious holiday on one of those days, can't we just amend the whole schedule like, you know?
Now, in the scheduling.
No, we can't.
No.
If I'm
Mr. Mayor, I'll
correct,
get you after she's
the
done.
council president,
Is she
it doesn't
speaking?
become amended, it becomes a special meeting.
No, you're wrong.
Doesn't become what I'm saying is, can we amend the schedule of the regular meetings after fact if there is a problem?
Yes. Let's make the motion.
Just one other thing for the public. If we follow what Mr. Iaciofano had said, and then, God forbid, we have this horrible weather again in March, and in order, okay, and in order to get done the budget the way we have to get it done, and its constraints put us in as a special meeting on Saturday, is everybody going to raise a ruckus because we're meeting to discuss a budget on Saturday?
Yes, and they already have.
Okay.
Yes, and they have.
Well, I asked the question one more time. If the constraints, again, because of the weather, force us for scheduling and to do things correctly, push us to a Saturday, are we going to hear, what are you doing on Saturday?
Yes, we are. If you meet on the Sabbath, you're going to have issues for meeting on the Sabbath. It already arose. We should be learning. From our experience. It's a lesson we need to learn from this past year.
Okay, well, we have a councilman disagreeing with what I hear from the public.
We'll have some.
Can we roll call and make a motion?
Make a motion.
We can argue because there's something else. We can always cancel a meeting or something like that, please.
This might help if we take, I know it's late, I don't want to recess for more than 5 minutes.
Come on.
Procedure, we have a motion on the floor that we want to move forward. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a motion from Mr. Sackett, we have a second from Mrs. Smith. Moving forward.
What's the motion? Speak into the mic.
And then we're going to vote for the regular meeting schedule that you can cancel or change afterwards. We're time barred on time.
So first up,
Just follow those.
January 22nd.
You know the motion.
I do. Can you reiterate it for
Mrs. Abrahamson, we're going to make a motion that was made by Councilman Sackett, seconded by Mrs. Smith, to amend the actual annual dates, changing January 16th, 2019 to January 22nd, 2019. Is that correct, Mr. Sackett? Correct. Yeah. And that's what we have a motion, we have it second, and we're going to do the roll. Are you, you understand? Doesn't matter why, because we're changing the date from the 16th to the 22nd that Mr. Sackett requested and Mrs. Smith seconded.
Okay, I got it.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? President Kelley?
Yes. We got 9 yeses. 9 yeses, 0 noes. Motion passes to change the date from the 16th to the 22nd. And we have a resolution R19-04. Resolution. Oh, I'm sorry. We're done now with everything, right? Now we have to vote on that resolution now with the change. We need a motion. Okay. We just made the change from Mr. Sackett, and now we're voting on that motion.
No, you already.
So do I have a motion?
Hold on a second. Can you, wait. Can you
just made a change to the calendar?
Mr. Kelly, can you?
And we voted on that, right?
Right. So.
Voted on the change.
Right, from the 16th to the 22nd.
We made the change of the date.
And now you voted on the change.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're voting on this entire thing.
Yeah, the change.
No, but this entire thing.
Yeah. With the change.
Yeah.
With the change.
With only one date change?
With only one date change.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Wait a minute.
I make a motion.
I will second.
Jedynak, second. I have a motion by Mrs. Abrahamson. Clerk, please make the roll.
I was.
Jeremy was the second.
Admin has something to say.
And we're voting on R19-02.
Discussion.
We have a,
Discussion from admin.
Just, it's for the whole thing.
yeah, now with the change included, yes.
Everything.
Yeah.
I have a question.
That's okay, we made a motion in the roll call. You want to call the board?
Discussion.
Discussion on this agenda?
Wait. All right, so we're voting on changing we did the 16th to the 22nd. Now we're voting on this whole thing, but including the change. So the whole package is going to include everything here, but the 16th is the 22nd.
Mr. Sackett made a motion.
Is that correct?
Mr. Sackett made a motion. Listen,
I'm
giving him clarification,
Go ahead.
please.
Regular meetings with your.
You had the regular meetings. Mr. Sackett made a motion to change the date to the regular meeting. Only one date he decided to change.
Correct.
We made that motion.
Got it.
It was second.
Got it.
And we voted for it. Now we're voting on the entire dates that have been changed.
Okay, so we're voting on the whole packet of dates, which would include the 22nd, correct?
Minus the 16th.
I got it, but with the 22nd goes everything else on that schedule.
Yeah, that's what we just made the motion for.
And Council President, if I may add, if you want to make changes on the 22nd, you have the opportunity to make those changes.
I don't know if you heard that, Mr. Palumbo.
If you want to make further changes to the schedule, you will have had an annual meeting schedule adopted tonight. If you want to make, in compliance with the OPMA, if you want to make further changes to it, on the 22nd, you could do that based on what the statute says. And that would give you time between now and then to make those changes. Or we can...
Mr. Flater, in all favor, we don't have, I mean, it's gone through with a fine-tooth comb of the dates that are conflicting that are on here. We don't have time now. Okay. You're going to be barred in it under the Public Meeting Act.
Our meeting isn't over yet. Okay.
Why?
Next meeting is the 22nd.
This meeting, we have something on the floor. Let's vote on it. This evening isn't over yet, right? So let's move forward.
But excuse me, is this open for discussion right now?
Just had it. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
I did. Why would we approve this and then publish it and then change it and publish it again?
That makes sense, right?
Well, you have it in front of you now. We have a time frame to do this. We don't have time.
So, okay, so you're willing to do that, right, to make that change?
No, you guys are willing to do that.
All right, let me clarify this. We're willing to, if the council approves this, and then we can change it at a later date and republish it again, why can't we just schedule it for the second and fourth Tuesday of the month?
Yeah, and my suggestion, Council President, again, is if that's what the council decides to do tonight, then simply appoint a committee of those
Councilwoman
members.
Smith, the evening's not over yet. It's a step-by-step process.
We're not going to have a committee to start wasting additional time. You feel that?
Step down.
Your vote is? You make a vote, and we'll have to adjust it accordingly. I mean, I think everybody had ample amount of time to review this, rather than a council meeting right now to come up with these arguments with this. So we'll go through the whole mechanism on there. If there was additional changes we could have done that while Mr. Sackett made the motion. We could have made some additional changes for that. We can vote and go over it, and vote and go over it, how many times you want to do it. So, clerk, please call the roll.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on having a change of the resolution 1902. Mr. Sackett made a motion, you seconded it, to change the date from the 16th to the 22nd. With that being changed, now it's been modified. We are now voting on the modified resolution for the calendar for the year.
With these dates?
Minus the 16th being changed to 22nd.
Well, why can't we vote on it the second?
We have, no. Councilwoman Smith, it's a step-by-step process. Instead of discussing it, call the vote, please.
Council President, if a council member wants to make further amendments, they can make that motion.
Prior to voting on this?
That's typically when you make the amendments, is prior to voting.
Very adamant about the change and this being a problem for you. Is there times and dates that we can address in one lump sum rather than?
Sure, I'd like to go through. So I'd like to make a motion to strike all of these dates and have a motion to have our meeting schedule be on January 7th and 22nd, February 12th and 26th, March 12th and 26th, April 9th and 23rd, May 7th and 21st, June 11th and 25th, July 9th and 23rd, August 13th and 27th. I think there's only one. September 10th and 24th, October 10th and 22nd, November 12th and 26th, and December 10th and 24th. I'm sorry.
Take it easy, I'm trying.
Why only one in December?
There's always one meeting in December.
Okay, but that's not what the code says.
You don't care. You don't care what the code reads?
Not in December, you're not going to have
I can tell you, I won't be here on the 24th. I can tell you that.
We also typically only have one meeting during the summer as well. May, June, July.
Did we have one meeting? Let me ask you a question, Councilman Jedynak. Did we have one meeting in July last year?
Without having the schedule in front of me, I don't recall. But typically over the summer, there's been only one meeting.
And that has not been an issue?
Including May.
Okay. It hasn't been an issue, Mike.
Why isn't it an issue, Township Attorney? I just want to ask that because you previously said we need to have 2 meetings a month. So I just want you to clarify that so I feel comfortable
The
about
only
this.
answer is it's been the historical practice of the township. If you're concerned about it becoming an issue because, as you say correctly, the code says 2 regular meetings a month, you can always notice a cancellation of the second meeting for each of those 2 months and for the second meeting in December.
To have that meeting though, Mr. Jackson.
No, I understand.
So you want to change it again to schedule 2 in July?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
In August then?
Yes, I do.
Second motion.
Make the motion.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second it.
Council President, can the list of dates be provided to all the council members so we can see what we're voting on?
There's a motion on the floor.
Mrs. New, could you repeat those dates?
Repeat what date?
The ones that Mr. Jackson just said?
You want me to repeat?
No, because you know what? He's just creating chaos, and he's loving it.
He needs to resign.
He needs to resign. He does.
Oh, stop.
Not doing taxpayers.
He's been such a pain. Let the guy get it done. Let him get it done.
He's going to step down, take one
And
more.
he's just creating chaos. It's 11 o'clock at night.
Just let Councilman Jackson reread it real quick.
So I'm going to go through it again. January 7th and 22nd.
Write it down, guys, now.
Oh yeah, we're gonna call the, so it's gonna have to be a separate motion. So January 22nd, February 12th, February 26th, March 12th, March 26th, April 9th, April 23rd, May 7th, May 21st.
Going way too fast. Can you go back to
Let me know, where do you need me?
April, please.
April 9th, April 23rd, May 7th,
It's in two, so go by meeting.
Oh, what I missed? Did I screw up? Yeah, okay. So let's go May 14th and May 28th. June 11th and June 25th. July 9th and July 23rd. August 13th and August 27th. September 10th and September 24th. October 10th, because of the Jewish holiday, and October 22nd.
What day is the 10th, Johnson?
No, 22nd. The 10th is the one that has to move because of the Jewish holiday.
October 22nd is a Jewish holiday.
No, the 27th
Is
is.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, so October 10th and October 24th.
What day is the 24th?
It's a Thursday.
Yeah, it's on this one.
November 12th and November 26th. Yeah, it's a week. And December 10th and December 24th. Well, what do you want me to move it?
They can cancel.
This is just getting. That's Christmas Eve, nobody did. Let's split.
When is the one in October? Is that regular?
They're both Thursday?
These are all regular meetings, Councilman.
But that's not the actual holiday.
Thanksgiving is
Me too.
Yeah.
That's my mother's from.
I'm sorry.
It is, but it's not an easy decision. We can cancel it.
Because he said,
You want to make a motion, Mr. Jackson?
I want to make that motion.
So,
Wait.
Do we have to schedule the 24th being it's a holiday?
Well,
meetings this month, we have.
So
Yeah.
no other day?
well, according to council, we could always cancel the meeting.
Okay.
Or you can do it on the 23rd.
Or 26th. But
I can move the other one.
We move the motion.
all right, yeah, okay. So can I change the date to December 26th?
24th is not a holiday.
So that's what I have.
I'll second that.
I have Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, Mr. Sackett,
I have a
second.
motion, and I have it second. Okay, we're going to go with the meetings that he has. You can vote on.
Just saying.
January 22nd, February 12th, 26th, March 12th, 26th, April 9th, 23rd, May 14th, 28th, June 11th, June 25th, July 9th, July 23rd, August 13th, August 27th, September 10th, and 24th, October 10th, and October 24th, November 12th, November 26th, December 10th, and December 26th.
That's correct. That's correct, thank
That's
you.
your motion? Change the dates
Yep,
for the regular
Yes.
meeting that we have in ordinance 19-02.
that's correct.
Now, we've already made a motion for the 22nd, which has already been changed. So we're making another motion now for that. Do we have a second for that motion? I'll second it. Freelander?
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but you can just real quick. Mr. Iaciofano,
Sir.
that schedule we just read off,
Yes.
the schedule we just read off.
Yes.
Would we be in violation of OPMA if we went with that schedule?
No.
Thank you.
They're going to pass it by resolution tonight at this meeting.
No budget meetings in this, right?
Not yet.
Okay. Nope. Clerk, any discussion over? You're done, everybody done? Call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Abstain.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? Vice President Abrahamson?
No.
This is a really...
President Kelley?
No.
We got disconnected. You want to add her to the roll?
Next, I'm going to make a motion.
Did you want to make your vote there, Patty, since we lost you?
But then I'm asking the next meeting. We got to
Yes.
We got 7 yeses, 1 no, 1 abstention. Motion carries. Now we have the changes. We have to vote on the change of the resolution R19-02. So we had the first change by Councilman Sackett from the 16th to the 22nd, eliminating the 16th. And then now we had a motion that was seconded by Mr. Freelander from Mr. Jackson's motion to change all the dates, which just passed. So now we are passing on the complete change.
I'll make a motion.
We need I want to make a motion to reaffirm tonight as our reorg meeting.
It's fine.
Am I correct?
Fine. Certainly.
Separate from the motion.
Yeah, but that's not the motion on the floor,
Okay,
though.
then what's the motion on the floor?
Approve all the
We're approving the modification of...
Changed everything.
If I may,
gotcha.
gentlemen, we're approving the modification of R19-02.
Understood.
I'll make a motion.
Have a second on that?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith, and second by Mr. Quinn. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Abstain.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, please. Yes.
President Kelley?
No. That would be 7 yeses, 1 abstention, 1 no. Motion carries.
You said it was okay to have that?
Okay. We have resolution R19-04.
Yes, Council President. R-19-04 is a resolution designating the official bulletin board for the Township of Rockaway for the year 2019. The official bulletin board is actually 2 bulletin boards. If you look at the resolution, they are listed as the one in the library as well as the one inside the municipal building. There are times of day where both are inaccessible to the public. There is, however, a bulletin board to the left of the entrance when you walk in. So I'd like to make a motion to amend this resolution to add a 3rd bulletin board labeled as the bulletin board to the left of the main entrance to the municipal building.
We have a motion made by Mr. Jedynak. We have a motion second by Councilmember Jackson. Any discussion? Everybody okay? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelley?
Yes. We have 9 yeses. Motion carries.
And then I will move to, I will move resolution R1904 as amended.
Second. Yep.
Clerk, call the roll. I'm sorry. Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
Yeah, what the-
President Kelly?
Yes. 9 yeses, 0 noes, amendment carries.
The first one was a motion to change it, and the second one was the vote to include.
Council President,
Yes.
is it proper at this time to make a motion to, and the proper verbiage for the motion, Mr. Iaciofano, to reaffirm tonight's meeting should be?
I believe it was advertised as a reorganizational meeting, so the council can simply pass a resolution reaffirming the advertisement of this session as a reorganizational meeting for 2019.
Okay, I make a motion to pass a resolution to establish tonight's meeting as the reorganizational meeting for 2019.
And do we do that, Mr. Iaciofano, prior to the commencement of the meeting? Or do we, if we have any business that's not finished yet, should we wait till the end of that?
No, I think doing it now is fine.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Palumbo, second by Jackson. You got the resolution? You got a motion, I'm Yes.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. 9 yeses, motion carries. We already went through the open to the public, which we moved forward, but I do have a motion from the floor. After our December 11th council meeting that we had, and during the portion of the holidays, we received another complaint in the form of litigation. And since we haven't spoke about it, and it happened after our last meeting, I think we need to go into a short recess into closed session just to discuss that, so everybody's on the same page. And I'm going to make a motion to go in closed session, and it would be in relation to John P. Schmidt and Mary Hollenbeck versus Rockaway Township. And that would be, the docket would be C-131-18. In addition would be also John Schmidt versus Rockaway Township and our municipal clerk. And the docket would be MRSL-002535-18. I intend that we would be in there for 40 minutes or less. And I would assume that we would have those records being available to the public within 120 days from this date. Do I have a motion? Have a second?
I second.
Mrs. Smith seconds. The motion moved by Mr. Jackson. Can I do a roll call?
Councilmember Quinn?
I'll abstain. I'm not going to be here.
You're leaving?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. Motion carries. 9 yeses. I'm sorry, 8 yeses, 1 abstention.
Are we going in the other room?
Are we going? And we're going to just recess for 40 minutes or less. And no, you can stay here. We're going to go across the hall. I make a motion to direct the Township Attorney Iaciofano as John Mills Esquire, to recuse himself, to cease any further participation in the litigation identified by docket numbers C-131-18, known as Schmidt and Hollenbeck versus Rockaway Township, as well as docket number MRS-L-002535-18, known as Schmidt versus Rockaway Township, and Christina Clipperton. Do I have a second?
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelley?
Yes. We have 6 yeses, 0 no's. Motion carries. I have, yes, and I'm going to make a motion for a special committee. But I'm going to make a special committee that's going to have Councilman Palumbo, Councilman Jackson, and myself, a special committee to evaluate attorneys to represent the council and township for matters identified as Schmidt and Hollenbeck versus Rockaway Township, docket number C-131-18, and Schmidt versus Rockaway Township and Christina Clipperton, identified docket number MRS-L-002535-18. So this special committee will try to find, select the council that's not in conflict. As Mr. Iaciofano and Mr. Mills are. Mr. Iaciofano is not going to step down, so. Yes. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Jedynak?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Kelley?
Yes. Motion adjourned. There was 6 yeses, 0 no's. Yeah, Mr. Schmidt, Mrs. Smith, sorry.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.